By the way, I figured the closest I would have worn the dismembered limbs for the line today because I felt like that's very. But the dismembered limbs necklace is still broken because it's not. I should have done something different with the fixings holding it all together. So I figured eyeball was my next best bet.
Well, if you can't feel it, you can see it.
Exactly. And
Um,
it's pretty hard to miss as an eyeball. I don't know if the dismembered limbs would read quite as well on camera.
well, it is what it is.
It is. It is.
Um, but yeah, so we are here again. Welcome, Voidwalkers,
Yay!
to our next
Welcome.
episode. I'm Dave,
And I'm Liz, and we are
and we are the
the Conf-
Confabulators. You
No
know,
matter
we-
what, we
one
never
day,
can sync it.
one day, we will get it in unison, and it'll be
Yeah,
glorious.
it'll be glorious, and then we'll somehow fuck it up because it'll be like every movie, TV show blooper where it's like they struggle and struggle and struggle, and then they finally get it right, and something else goes wrong, and so it's still not usable. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking there's this one blooper in the producers where like in the blooper reel they show it and they're in like take like 25, 37, whatever, and like Broderick and Lane are both just like at that point just like dying. They're so delirious and they finally get their part right. And in the background Uma Thurman's coat gets caught on the couch. So they finally get it right and then her coat gets stuck.
And
They just have this look like we're dying.
that's amazing.
That's gonna be us.
Yeah, it will. So, what are we talking about today?
Oh, today's going to be a fun topic and fun and loaded. So we are talking about the line, as in where
Yep.
is the line? And I think we probably can fairly say to everybody out there, Dave, just to start us off, that this is going to be a heavy episode. Just to anybody out there, I'm going to preface it right away. Um, we are probably going to get into some more trigger warning topics with this, just because the nature of what we're discussing.
Yeah.
Where is the line? So,
Yeah, and I know that for episodes we've been putting content warnings and stuff ahead of time,
mhm.
but we're also emphasizing that here, especially with this particular topic, because knowing where that line is and like talking about what it means to go past that point, to be like on that line, like not crossing it, all that stuff, does delve into many different topics where some creative types might take it too far, might have good intentions, but take it too far, might not have good intentions and take it too far. Like, there's a lot of different things that come with the line.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so we'll have the content warnings in particular specifics up front, but for where we're at right now with the episode, we're just letting you guys know ahead of time. If this is not an episode you think that you can ride with, if you need a moment or anything like that, don't feel obligated to listen to this episode or watch it.
mhm.
Just, the next one will be a lot more fun.
Yeah. Tell
We
you
can
right
promise
now,
that.
we intentionally made sure the next episode is we're gonna be delving into a recent horror trilogy. So, movies. So it
Yeah.
should be a lot more fun, a lot more lighthearted. But yeah, and I think it's just there's so much kind of baked in terms of heavyweight topics and difficult discussions that comes with talking about the line. So more than a lot of our other episodes where it's been on reviewing the episodes that we've realized we need to put some disclaimer in there. We need to put some warning in there for folks. This one was one that I know Dave, you and I both were like, this is going to be a difficult conversation, and we knew that right from the get-go.
Yeah.
So,
So uh so yeah, health is wealth. Keep good care of yourself.
mhm.
And if you're gonna nope out of this episode, that's perfectly fine. We'll see you in the next one.
Mhm.
Um and we appreciate every single one of you, no matter what.
Exactly. So, now then, the
What
line.
is what has been your experience in the general past with regards to the line?
I I mean, in the general past, it's not something that I've had like it's something that's formed over the years for me of kind of understanding what is acceptable and what is not. And even so, I will admit part of it may be growing up a little more sheltered, especially with horror genre and violence in movies. In some ways it's helped because I'm coming at the line from a more I've had to come at kind of learning that, but from a more emotionally mature perspective, um in terms of being able to kind of understand some of this, and also to understand when something may or may be very much walking on the line of it's going to be acceptable to some but too much for others. uh but it also means I feel like there's a lot out there that I've just not engaged with. And now as an adult, I'm finding out more about it and going, that's okay that I've not engaged with it, and I'm not going to engage with it. So it's not something where I've like had lots of experiences. I did have one, my first real big experience with sort of a film that I thought was exploitive, like that went past the line with no reason to. And I mean, you know this, you've heard this. Several people have heard me. I'm almost mad about this film's existence. Honestly, I am mad about its existence, and it has colored my perspective on that director. I don't care what they've contributed to film. I think their decisions made were fucking abhorrent. And I don't really care that it's based off a book because I'm like, there's better ways to do this. And that's going to be A Clockwork Orange, which,
Ah,
yeah. And that one, to try to explain it to people, again, I was fairly sheltered. Even, you know, I mean, I think I told the story on here of, I feel like I told it on here, or it's one of, on one of our episodes about how, you know, even being into anime and games and everything as a kid, like I'm the youngest of three. So part of why I was sheltered is my parents learned as they brought my siblings and I up. But I also had an older brother and he was into more of like some of the actiony stuff. But my parents were still very deliberate. But my siblings also are both older enough. They're 7 and 10 years older than me respectively. So they also were very protective of me as the big siblings. So my brother for years worked at a comic shop that sold manga, comics, figurines, Magic the Gathering. It was a nerd shop. But it meant he accumulated a giant collection of manga because he got major discounts. And so he would, you know, throw things at me to read, like, oh, you'll like this. Like when the Bleach manga, not the anime, when the manga first started coming out, he had like the first volume of it and handed it to me and went, I think you're going to like this, you know? So that may age me for y'all because I was in high school then. But so he picked up a lot, but I remember even him being like, you're too young for that. And it was funny because some of them, the mangas that he had that he's going, no, don't read that, were ones that I had friends in high school reading it, and I knew enough about them, knew it from them, that when he said, don't touch that, I just went, okay. Like, I trusted my brother to be able to say, don't read that. And like, those were like, and some of this will throw people, will be it's like Battle Royale, Berserk. Those were like the two big ones. And again, I had a lot of classmates who were reading Battle Royale, and so I knew a bit about it, but I knew enough about it that I wasn't particularly interested in it. I also just wasn't interested. I had no interest in that kind of gratuitous artistic storytelling. And I say artistic loosely, but just that the art was much more like R-rated art. You know, I was still coming out of like, you know, shonen I can't even remember the terms anymore, but like I was still coming out of like the extent of graphic was like Bleach, where it was still very not graphic, not heavily visual. We don't draw out people in detail. Then you get to like mangas like Berserk and Battle Royale, where it's like boobs look like boobs and then some, and if we're gonna stab somebody or disembowel them, it's gonna look like they've been disemboweled. So but yeah, I was very sheltered from that. And so it wasn't until like shortly after I turned 18, my brother came home from college and he looks at me and goes, you're 18 now. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like moving some stuff around the living room and he just reaches over, grabs a stack that happens to be like the first 10 or 11 volumes of Berserk, walks over, just bam on a table in front of me and goes, read this. So he was protective, but he was also trying to be reasonable, and I think he wanted to be able to have somebody else who engaged with it, but he was also very careful of like, I don't want to be the one to expose you to something before you're at an age where you can process it. And even if I could have processed it before, I really appreciate that he did that. But when keeping that in mind, this is all me roundabout saying that I had never been exposed to anything as hardcore, even remotely near that. I'd watched very little R film. I had not watched that many R-rated films, honestly, um, when I saw A Clockwork Orange, and I had no idea what it was about. I had zero inkling. I didn't even know it was a Stanley Kubrick film. And by that point, I had seen 2001: A Space Odyssey. I hated it, but it was also because I was bored out of my fucking mind with it. So, but it was in film club. I was 15 and beginning of freshman in high school. So I was 15, freshman in high school, just starting out. I'm like, I'm going to go join the film club because my brother did film club and it was fun. And this teacher's great. The guy basically was very self-guided. Like he just kind of made sure we were all okay, but we all put up nominations and voted on them. And people in the class, somebody went up to the board. There were like the edgy older students. It was definitely that sort of niche group. And somebody went up on the board and went, A Clockwork Orange. And suddenly everybody in film club was voting for that one. Me, I'm voting for something else because I'm like, the fuck is film? I don't know what that is. I don't know anything about it. I literally had no opinion left or right on it. You know, I mean, I'm sitting there going, clockwork, clocks, oranges, fruit? What? Like, that was my level of innocence. And the only hint that I had that that movie was crazy was that because when they voted, the entire club, like not the entire club, but it got the majority votes, and the teacher looks at us and goes, "Are you guys sure?" And all these other ones who are all excited are like, "Yeah, let's watch it." And he just looks at it and goes, "Okay, well, you're taking this form home and getting your parents to sign it." And it was we give permission for our children to watch basically R-rated and upper level films, whatever. I
Yeah.
didn't feel like I could leave the room the day that we watched the film. And again, small classroom, lights are out, doors closed. Where I was situated in the room, I felt I felt like it would be too conspicuous for me to leave, and I wanted to leave within the first 15 minutes. And if you've seen A Clockwork Orange, you know why. Because it portrays extreme sexual violence immediately. I've never seen something like that. I'd maybe seen like a couple nude scenes even at that point. Like I feel like that might have been like maybe the second time I saw nudity like blatantly on screen. And it's not male nudity, it's female nudity. So it's done with all the respect you would expect, which is to say there was none.
Yeah.
And at 15 years old, with no concept of what I was going into, no preparation, I didn't even talk to my parents really about it. I came home. I finally got done with that day. I got home and I was like, I need to watch something else now. And I got home and I watched The Matrix immediately. I was like, I need to get this out of my head. Because that film made me so fucking uncomfortable. And I have a lot of issues with Kubrick, partly because of that film. So, and I think my experience with that is kind of what colored why I kind of go with this instinct of whether or not I engage with something, even off first impression. So, that's my whole roundabout long ass answer to your question. So, what's been your experience
Well,
with
that's
the
a
line?
pretty solid answer. For me, I have not really had much in the way of like parental control or anything like that. I'm an only child, so I didn't have any like older siblings to be like, "Hey, watch this, don't watch this." Um, but even then, my parents, they didn't really like uh, manage that too much, other than like keeping me from watching anime because they didn't understand anime in the first place. They just thought it was like weird Japanese stuff. But uh, since I was good in the theater as a kid, um, where I would sit and actually watch because I was interested instead of being a noisy kid running up and down the aisles of the theater and stuff. I got to watch a lot of things, like I think in a previous episode I mentioned how I was brought to RoboCop and I sat there, watched it, and loved it, you know. And that one is very gratuitous, with purpose, right? Um, like I've watched the Rambo movies, I've watched the Friday the 13th movies, Nightmare on Elm Street, all this other stuff, you know, and some of it can be very gruesome. Some of it can be very gory at times and whatnot. And um, because of that, it's amazing that like nothing, like I wasn't affected in the way that some people might fear that somebody would be affected as a kid, um, which is great, you know. Um, but on the other hand, I also kind of developed a sense of like, uh, if something was like weirdly over the line, I don't know how else to explain it. Like, and maybe it was just something that came later. I don't know. But whenever I would watch something like, I'll just throw one out there, like when Human Centipede came out, right? Um, that one, like you knew what it was on the tin,
Yeah.
right? It it was the thing that went around and people were like, "Oh my God, you got to see it," and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And so like out of curiosity, I eventually wound up seeing it with some friends. And so I'm sitting there watching it. I'm like, this is dumb. This is really dumb. Like all we're doing is watching exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And it's clear that the person who made that script, who's directing it and whatnot, all they had was an idea, and then that was all they had. And so they had to fill in the rest of the movie with just whatever they could, and none of it really mattered. It was just get these people to this location, centipede, now what?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this is this is ridiculous and dumb, and it's not even remotely interesting. Like,
Yeah.
because there's things that are gratuitous, uh, and fascinating. To give an example, which I'm kind of I'm kind of going out there. One of my favorite authors and creative minds is Clive Barker,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, he is he's one of the creatives who is most well known for the splatterpunk genre, which we'll talk a little bit about later. But um, basically, the way that he does his stuff is he really explores the body and like physicality and whatnot through a lens of horror, but there's purpose behind it. And so even though there are those moments of gratuitousness, it doesn't feel exploitative,
Yeah.
right?
It feels
I guess that,
intentional.
yeah, it's intentional.
Yeah.
Um, so it doesn't feel gross like Human Centipede. Because
Yeah.
all that is just like an idea and then that's it.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the thrust of a big part of the line, if between what you're saying and what I'm saying so
Mm-hmm.
far, is gratuitousness and goriness can work if there's intention to it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like I think of you say that and it's exactly something I think of. And I think that's where there is a level of personal perspective that comes into play with some things because, how the if the intent lands. Um but like my immediate example I think of when I tell people about, versus something where it's like is it gratuitous but with gratuitous with intent or is it just there for the sake of shock value? I think of and I know I've cited this before, I think of Westworld. Especially in the first season, there's so much nudity in it. but it's done so clinically because the nudity is about showcasing that these people aren't actually people. They are machines that are being used for this intent. So like it's done so clinically because it's like, oh, we're trying to remind the audience that these people don't actually get seen by their makers as people per se. They just look like people. So they don't think twice about having them be naked. And there's like a moment I remember in like a couple episodes with some characters who talk about taking advantage of the fact because these are machines in a world where you can do anything you want. You could kill somebody, you could have sex with them, it's okay because these aren't real people. And so, but again, it's with an intent of that's part of the problem of this world. It's posing the question of what if you could go in and do whatever the fuck you wanted with no consequences. Well, we made machines so you could go in and murder them, or you could go in and have sex with all of them. There aren't consequences here. There aren't consequences because you're not doing it to living human beings. And that becomes a whole whatever. Take whatever you feel about the rest of the Westworld series, you name it. But it's, to me, the nudity in there isn't bothersome because it feels very intentional. It's making a point. It's setting the environment up and the context in which these characters exist and then go through their journey, especially the ones who are the machines and are going essentially through journeys of self-identity. So, but yeah, it's intent is such a factor in it. And I think that's why I felt so strongly with A Clockwork Orange and I know A Clockwork Orange is based off a book, a novel written by an author in the UK. I tried to listen to it, which interestingly enough, the audiobook was actually that I went to check out and listen to was actually read by Malcolm McDowell, who, as we know, was the original actor in the main character role of it when he was much, much younger. Um, if I could ever ask him what drew him to playing that character, I'd be curious because I enjoy him as an actor. That character to me and what Kubrick did with it, and again, I've had difficulty digesting it. What I do know is that originally when the book was brought over to the States back in like the 60s or something, um, the last three chapters, for some reason, publishers in the United States omitted it, the last three chapters when they brought it over from the UK, which was like, wait, why would you omit the last three chapters of the book? And then Kubrick didn't follow the last three chapters. He basically ended the story before those three chapters. Then I remember having a friend in high school who they were extremely like they were one of these people who could like literally read a 200-page novel in one period. I remember going in, they could read so fast. I remember they came to me one day at school and they read so fast and so much that they just took things randomly off the shelves. And I remember they came up to me and they're like, yeah, I've got this book. And they like were literally like on like page 30 at the beginning of the day. And by the break period, so we had like two classes and then a break, they came back and they'd finished the book. And I'm like, how did you read that in two class periods? That's that side tangent there. But they had read A Clockwork Orange, and I remember getting into a conversation with them because that was kind of when I learned it was based off a book, and they go, oh yeah, the last three chapters, the character finally has this big, like, character arc turnaround where, like, they finally kind of develop, and I'm like, wait, so you're telling me that the point where Kubrick ended the film is before the character goes through any kind of true emotional change and change of, like, character arc, like, finishes their arc? Then what the fuck? That means the character didn't change at all. And that was the perception I got when I watched the film. I've only seen that film once, and I was bothered by the fact that that character didn't go through any kind of change. It was still a horny kid at the end. Because
Yeah.
I'm like,
So,
this means you didn't learn anything.
yeah, the way that it's framed at the end of that movie, um, he hasn't learned anything. He just was able to shake off the Ludovico technique
Yeah.
and just because like I remember that face that McDowell made at the end of that movie and how he was just munching on
Yeah.
whatever it was that he was eating, like it was a toothless grandpa trying to eat a steak,
Yeah.
um, which is
Exactly.
really gross to think about.
I
Um,
know. Yeah. And it's like that thing where he sees like the Puritans surrounding like the hole in the sand while he gets it on with like all I see is like women's limbs everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what? Are we back?
Yeah.
And like, I found myself being like, are we back at the beginning? Because this to me means this kid has no concept of the wrongness of the things that he's done. The
Yeah.
wrongness, the exploitation, how damaging. And at
Yeah.
that point to me it also means like, wait, so is this film about him overcoming somebody who's actually trying to badly reform him? Because what that means is the film's just said, yay, he overcame state conditioning or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, he's still a fucking rapist.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. A violent, aggressive, uh, abuser
yeah,
and rapist.
yeah.
It's not great.
Ugh,
Not at all.
yeah.
Funny enough, that's not the only exploitative role that Malcolm McDowell's had.
I feel like he's
Uh,
done that. Yeah,
he was also the main character in the movie Caligula. And there are a couple of versions of it, the longer one being the grossest version of it, um, which I won't get into everything here, but needless to say, I think if you could think of it, it is probably in that movie. Uh, and it's a movie where when McDowell went on tour, the movie tour, he was telling audiences don't watch it
yeah,
because of how bad it was.
yeah.
And that's pretty bad.
I know, yeah. To
And
be in the film doing the promo tour and basically saying don't watch during the promo tour, it's a little like, damn,
and it
son.
wasn't one of those kind of tours where it was like, oh, we're gonna provoke the audience into watching it by saying don't watch it.
Yeah.
No, he was legitimately like, don't watch this. This is awful. Just
Please
save
don't.
your money, save your time, save your life. Don't watch it.
Right, yeah.
Um, so like,
Which is funny because even if it's intended to truly be a don't watch this, it ends up inspiring kind of a question of, well, now we're watching to find out why we're saying this. It's the innate curiosity of human beings,
mhm,
which I
yeah,
swear is our own sabotage, you know.
it is.
And I think that's where it's so hard with understanding where the line is because we are innately curious beings
Mhm,
that it's so easy to, if you're a filmmaker or a writer, you might do something kind of out of the curiosity of doing it and exploring that really you shouldn't. Or at least don't share that with the
yeah,
public. Explore that in the privacy of your own personal writings that nobody ever sees. Like,
yeah,
and I say this as I am, all my feelings about A Clockwork Orange, the film. I would still like to sit down and read the book one day, but read the entire book, not what was originally brought over to the States, not, like not without those last three chapters. I want to see what the author actually intended, what their story being told is. Because I also feel like that's a massive disservice to cut off the last three chapters, especially if that's the point where your main character goes through their big dramatic change. Like,
mhm,
to me, that's just that it wasn't even just like, because originally I thought it was just Kubrick that did that, but then when I was reading years ago, I was reading about it and I found out that it was actually when it was brought over to the States originally as a book that was done. That almost disturbed me because I want to sit there and be like, what American publisher would think that was a good decision? you know
right.
and to me it speaks to something deeply intrinsically wrong in certain aspects of culture,
Mhm,
because I'm like, who does that to an author unless the author says, I mean, and maybe the author wrote off on it, but at the same time it's like, I don't know their thought process. This is me. This just, to me, it's very bothersome. I guess kind of in the
yeah,
way of like, this is probably a bad example, but like, Kubrick adapted Stephen King's The Shining. King,
mhm,
I don't want to say famously, but if you're in the King world of his books, you pretty much know that he hated that film
mhm,
because it butchered the book to him and it butchered the theme and something that was very, very personal to him. And I think arguably, if we were going to put it in perspective, Kubrick crossed the line. But I also think Kubrick just fucks authors over. Like, I don't think Kubrick really has respect for when he's adapted books. I feel like he has not done it respectfully. He has done it with like, you got an idea, and now I'm gonna run with it the way I do. Because I watched The Shining, the Jack Nicholson one. I watched the Kubrick one out of obligation to experience that aspect of horror, not because I have any interest in Stanley Kubrick. I'm like, again, objectively, there's some decent cinematography, filmmaking choices, but like the bathroom scene made no fucking sense to me. Like the bathroom scene with
Oh,
with
with
the
the
naked woman,
lady.
yeah, to me that was just like up, and there's Kubrick finding excuses to throw women's tits on screen. And to me that is one of the things I find very, like, even reading about Kubrick and like what Shelley Duvall went through making that film.
I I
My
think
film watching has made me develop perspectives on Kubrick and his feelings on women, honestly. So,
yeah, he's not a great person when it comes to women.
yeah, and I also think he
Not at
just,
all.
I don't mind when a filmmaker wants to explore dark things, but
Mhm.
again, it has to have purpose, and if I'm losing that intent, then you're getting into exploitation area.
I, yeah, one person, from what I remember, I'm looking him up right now as far as like his name. Um, he was in The Whitest Kids You Know, which is uh, a formerly a sketch comedy show
Mm-hmm.
that started on like YouTube and stuff, and then like got its own show and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, Zach Kreger, actually, is his name.
Mm.
He made a fantastic movie called Barbarian, which explores a lot of like fears and stuff that women go through. And I thought that Kreger did a fantastic job
I have
directing that
I
film.
remember hearing good things about
Um,
that. I think, what was it? It was a
yeah,
few years ago it came out or
yeah.
something. Yeah. I remember seeing it on
He's
Max.
he's got another one coming out called Weapons this year,
Oh, and you know
which
what?
should be
You know
great.
what? That's where this is going to be a random. We are going to try to break up the episode with some silly moments, but here's the funny tidbit. He's also been the director signed to the newest Resident Evil live action adaptation.
Ah,
He's the one
really?
doing, yes, and well, what, it's weapons. That's what made me realize it, because it's like
Oh,
every
okay.
article I've seen about like, ooh, theory, speculation about the newest adaptation. They go, he's done this and this, and it's like, okay, and he's got weapons coming out. He's, yeah. So weird crossover, but it gives me kind of hope that there's somebody that, even if he's a little more indie experimental about it, how he goes about it, it gives me some hope though for the Resident Evil um live
Yeah.
action. I mean, I also just go into those movies going, you know what? I don't care. They're
I,
just
I will say,
fun.
yeah, I will say that Krager, as a director, seeing Barbarian
Hmm.
was very fascinating in like his choices and seeing how like the cinematography went and everything like that. Some of it gets really gruesome
Yeah.
in that film, but I felt like it did a really good job exploring the intention that he had, which is like subtle fears that women have in society, not knowing like if certain people are like okay to associate with or talk to, if somebody's going to do something horrible, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, and it's deeper than what I'm explaining.
Yeah. Well,
It's
it gives
well
me
worth a
hope.
watch though.
And it gives me hope for the Resident Evil live action, the newest one, just
Mhm.
because I would love to see one that went further into the themes and the character depth. Because especially now
Mhm.
with the remakes of the games, you're getting a lot more of that because the dialogue's a little less campy, the writing's a little less campy, but then it opens up doors for further exploration.
Yeah.
So
Um,
that gives me hope, though. Just it's so
yeah.
funny, that weird tie-in of dirt.
And and with Barbarian, there's really weird, gruesome moments in it. Like, there's one scene in the middle of the movie where the that nerd from the Macintosh commercials who's in the I'm a Mac and I'm a PC. If you remember that commercial?
Vaguely.
Um,
Sorry, when you say Macintosh
he
commercials, I think of this really old thing back from when I was in middle school that was
so
some side thing.
so John Hodgman was the nerd with the glasses on, and he was the PC. And then the other nerd, the one that I'm talking about, was the Mac.
Ah,
I forget his name, but he's in this movie. And there's a scene where he gets trapped inside the house, and uh, the protagonist is trapped in there too. That he finds her because originally this is like his house, like he has the deed to it, but he gets trapped in there with her, and there's a monster there, and this monster uh, has some mother issues, like in particular taking care of children, namely like babies. And so he has to do a particularly gross thing, which I won't spoil here, um, because it's insane.
no.
Um, it, you, I really don't want to talk about it because I want you to see it,
That's
Liz.
okay. That's okay. I
Um,
am. You're giving me enough of endorsement that I want to see it, especially knowing what else he's associated with. And I'm watching this
yeah,
dog climb up on the couch now.
it's it's absolutely insane. But those moments, they're sparse enough that they really, really stick out. And they are particularly like within that frame of being um like moments where you would go, is this okay? But then like you think about like what's going on with the intention and everything, and like it makes sense. It's fine.
Yeah.
It might not be everybody's cup of tea, but it's not being exploitative. It's exploring something.
Yeah.
Um,
And it sounds like
and I,
they pace them well enough that you can digest it within the story. It's not
yeah,
just like let's slam it all at you over and over and over again.
yeah. Um, there's a couple small things in that movie where I'm like, it doesn't quite make sense, namely like timeline,
Mm.
but that's something that like I could get past in that movie, because of what it was saying.
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
Um,
So there we
let's
go
see.
on it's gratuitous, but it's with intention behind it. It's
Mhm.
yeah. It's funny you mentioned that it spaced it out because that got me thinking of and I've been waiting for us to have this chat about it since I well tried to watch it this week of Tromaville.
Oh yes,
The Tromaville,
Boyd Kaufman.
yeah, and I read a little bit about him because for the Voidwalkers out there, this goes all the way back to what, like the first or second episode we recorded, Dave, and you're like, I want to know what you think of the Toxic Avenger. And it was on
Yeah.
Prime, and I tried to watch it. I tried.
Uh-huh.
Even looking at my phone, like using my phone as a way to balance by distracting me from a little bit of the
Mhm.
visual overwhelm, I was pissed off and turned it off after 20 minutes. Or I want to say maybe it wasn't 20 minutes. I think it was longer than that. It was at the cafe scene when he comes to rescue all the people in there and he fights like the bandits in the cafe. By that point, I just was like, fuck this shit. I'm mad. I'm mad that they're remaking it and coming out this summer. I'm like, and that it's still Lloyd Kaufman and this, because I ended up going and reading because I'm like, okay, what have these directors done? Is there any fair way I can justify like these directors have actually done some good shit? And it's like, no, he's just done other Tromaville stuff. And that when I was reading about him, and it was like, what if I can keep the audience? It like that his philosophy or his sort of question he was trying to answer when he made it of what if I can keep the audience glued to their seats by just constantly hitting them with something so extreme that they don't know what to expect next. And
Mhm.
that just made me mad because to me, I'm like, then there was no intent in this story. It was just
Yeah.
how much more shocking and horrible I can be. And that first half hour, whatever the film, it wasn't even that it was gory, but what was happening with the characters bothered me so deeply. Like, frankly, I absolutely despise the way the characters at the beginning, the main character, is treated as somebody who
Mhm.
appears to be differently abled, you
Yeah.
know, may have some, well, may, is definitely portrayed as having neurodivergent quirks. Um,
Mhm.
I despise seeing them treated the way they are. The people around them are assholes of the worst kind. They're the kind of human beings that I'm like a collection of the worst kind of assholes ever. And then I'm gonna fully admit the really last straw for me, and I even skipped the immediate thing because I had just read it that it was happening, so I knew when to expect it, and so I skipped those couple seconds, and it still really bothered me. The dog
Mhm.
in what Winnie Hart warning to folks, this character or not this character in the movie, and not an actual animal is not no actual animal is harmed, but on the story, an animal is shot and killed, and it's treated so callously. And as somebody who loves animals, I swear that is that is a line for me in a lot of films is you have to be so damn respectful. I mean, I'm a pet owner, but I'm just like it hits me. That just to me was the last straw. That was the absolute last straw. It was like, no, no, I can't even. The way we're treating this is so horrible. It is so horrible. I don't even want to see the remake. I don't care how many big names are associated with it. I am so mad at Lloyd Kaufman for making this film.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, fuck you, dude. The only thing I can appreciate at all about him is that apparently, supposedly, in the trivia, I was on IMDb in the trivia, around his sets, he puts up signs that basically are like safety for people, crew, and this. And I'm like, I appreciate that you actually value the safety of your people on the sets. Because that's not something that you usually see going hand in hand with old B movies. Usually they're also a little bit off the rails in
Yeah.
production. And I'm like, I appreciate that you valued the human safety of the actual people, crew members, and animals on your set. But fuck you for making this movie.
Mhm. Well, he's definitely somebody who is incredibly cartoony,
Very.
both in his films and in life.
Uh-huh.
Seeing the bits of him in real life, he's he seems like a genuinely sweet person,
Which
from what I've seen.
which is a part of the like a little bit of what I read about. I'm like I'm trying to juxtapose because he does actually seem like it is not any one person who does that who overtly makes sure that everybody knows that the safety of his people and everyone involved is valued.
Yeah.
And that it's notable enough to even be like a piece of trivia on IMDb. Part of me's like, okay, that takes a particular good person. How could you make this thing?
I mean, I don't know. I wish I had an answer to that.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the remake of Toxic Avenger
Mm.
because of the big names involved. If it wasn't for like Dinklage being Toxie or anything like that, I would probably pass it by, but I am morbidly curious about it. Um,
I have to admit, there is a part of me that wants to know why these other actors, because it's a ton of big names with it. It's like the whole top cast is like, the whole main cast is like top billing people. And
yeah, Kevin Bacon, Dinklage,
Elijah
like,
Wood. I mean, it's a
yeah,
lot of huge names. And now I know from them, like, Wood has done some more offhand roles, and I saw like a quick screen grab of him from it, and it's like, yeah, that looks like what Wood's been doing since Lord of the Rings, which is picking really strange roles and very experimental roles. And hey, kudos to him. He's actually a really good actor. So,
yeah.
but that and the journey he and I think like Daniel Radcliffe have taken from trying to separate themselves from like the roles that made them so famous. But I wonder, but at the same time, I still don't want to see it. I think if you watch it and you tell me you have an idea of my taste now, I feel like. So if you give it a good endorsement, but if it's anything like the old one, I'm going to be so mad.
I'll let you know.
Okay.
Because I gotta see it. I'm curious.
Hmm.
Another thing that's interesting about Toxic Avenger and Chromaville is Toxic Avenger got a toy line, comic books, a cartoon, which I watched the cartoon, and
Yeah.
I had a couple of the toys. It got video games, I believe, like a lot of things.
Which is
And
so. Oh, go
the
ahead.
funniest thing about it is that after Toxic Avenger, I believe the thing that's the next most known about the whole Tromaville, like Tromaverse or whatever, is Nukem High, which is a 2 or 3 part movie series that's just like a bunch of high schoolers uh, who are also getting like blown up and grotesque things happening to them and stuff like that in the comical fashion that is Kaufman's mind.
Yeah.
You know, it's like really ridiculous, really double dare-ish uh, in nature and grossness, and really just bananas. You know,
Yeah. Which sort
um,
of brings it gets me wondering at the question of, admittedly, we're talking about where, because one of the key things coming into this episode when we were first brainstorming was where is the line? And, I think everything we've mentioned so far, every one of those films, they have a following. It's just there's a strange element to me of it's kind of like there's the dissonance, the cognitive dissonance of this feels like exploitation, but it's been accepted by society on some level. I feel like especially with Toxic Avenger, I see that because look at how many big names are signing on, have signed on, which again, yeah, makes you kind of wonder, are they doing something differently? Like other than obviously getting like not grade B level actors in it. Because I will admit the
yeah,
acting is so over the top in the original. Like
yeah,
beyond over the top. The acting is comical. It was the content that they were acting that bothered me, if anything.
mhm,
But I mean, if anything, that to me of where is the line? It's almost more that like even when I think about it objectively, it was the content of the story and actions characters took that really bothered me. I didn't necessarily over the top acting to me is over the top, whether they're playing good guys or bad guys. But it was sort of like even under a good actor, these characters are heinous.
yeah. And like, I'm sure that we could think of like some over the top acting and stuff like that. Like, for example, Jeremy Irons in the Dungeons and Dragons movie
Oh
comes
my gosh.
particularly to mind.
He
And
is
just seeing him just
stellar.
eat the scenery, just being like, I'm here, I'm a wizard, and I'm going to control a dragon, god damn it.
Him
Just
and who else? You know who else is kind of like Jeremy Irons or had kind of that same vibe on screen? Christopher Plummer, which is so funny because there's so many outside of like kind of that niche horror genre, B movie, whatever. Christopher Plummer, the big thing he's noted for is he was Georg von Trapp in The Sound of Music.
mhm.
He's acted across from Julie Andrews, Dame Julie Andrews. He's singing the. But what he's done outside of it has been like he's a Klingon in Undiscovered Country, and he's this Klingon that is particularly a presence on the screen because he's the Klingon who I remember this one scene. It's the dinner scene in Undiscovered Country where they're all sitting around the table, the crew and the Klingons, because the whole thing in that movie is like we're now signing a treaty with the Klingon Empire, but Kirk's got qualms because Klingons murdered his son, and they've been enemies for so long, and they sit down to have this sort of diplomatic dinner on Enterprise. And this guy, this is Christopher Plummer, full Klingon getup, goes, "You haven't heard Shakespeare until you've heard it in the original Klingon." And he starts quoting "To be or not to be," but it's in Klingon.
That's pretty great.
And he's
I like that.
and he's spectacular. It's like it's like the same kind of vibe that Jeremy Irons gives, where they are just like eating up the scene, no matter how mediocre the scene is. They just
I
own the room.
I think part of that comes from just intense amounts of stage training
Yeah.
because stage actors they tend to learn first how to do things like you know
Exude.
fully emote and express themselves so that the people in the very back can hear them and understand what's going on, right?
Yeah. Well, you
It's
learn
something
how
that
to
like
have a
I had to.
yeah, it's you learn how to
Yeah.
have presence, and I learned it in equestrian vaulting where it's called you go out into the arena and you want to capture the judge. You want to capture, figure skaters. The best figure skaters out there will have you mesmerized. I have watched vaulters on horses where it's like you go quiet while they perform their routines because they come out with it's the shoulders back, the chest up, the head, the chin high, that it's just they exude a I am your focus. I am your focus because I have decided I am your focus.
Yeah. And with stage, it's kind of like that too, you know.
Hmm.
Like I said, that I had to do that when I was getting my bachelor's. We trained half in film and half on stage, so
Hmm.
we got half and half.
Yeah.
So it was always like trying to project as much as we could, so that way everybody in the back could understand what was going on.
Yeah.
There was no room for the subtlety of film where you just have the camera and you're up here like this,
Yeah.
and there might be a moment where you're having to be particularly quiet or something like that, and so you're just like this, like
But it typically is that your really seasoned stage
right.
actors can exude that level of depth when you put them on screen. They're actually really excellent when you pull in because they've managed to capture how to portray that depth to
Mhm.
to the person in the last row. So when the
Yeah.
camera comes up on them, it's like unmistakable.
And one of the things that we learned is you can always bring it down.
Yep.
It's harder to bring it out than it is to bring it in.
Yeah.
And so that's why stage is super important in acting training. And you can kind of tell if somebody has had stage training when they're on film or not
Hmm.
because of certain things like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's why I love
you know,
incorporating theater games, certain theater games and musical interpretation games with my vaulters when I'd be practicing with them, because, especially for them, a lot of them were at the age where you're starting to feel socially self-conscious. And it's like, no, but if you want to be at this level, you need to be big. You need to think performatively, big, and also be relaxed. And so and that's one of the things I think that comes off too is when they're very seasoned and trained in stage, there's a level of relaxation that comes because you can just walk into a room and be in complete control of it. And I love it. I've seen it with vaulters, I've seen it with actors. You hear it even in audio.
yeah.
It's a different kind, it's a maybe a slightly different skill set, but it's so funny to me because though there's such a physicality to it that a lot of times exuding that same level of confidence and control in only an audio channel, if you actually look at the person visually, they're still exuding that.
Yep. Um, Being in the booth, one of the things that you learn is how to control your voice and how to really like be able to convey those emotions and thoughts and feelings, because all the people have is their ears.
Yeah.
And part of like what I do, and I see it with like professional actors too, is they'll move in the booth, and those movements help them control the emotions and the push, the reason why their choices and whatnot that they make with every line of their script. It pushes those decisions because it helps them. They need that because they don't have another person to whom with whom they can act and react. They just have the mic, and
Yeah.
then they have the script. And if they're dubbing, they'll have the monitor over there and the three beeps, and that's basically it. Other
Yeah.
than like the director who's over there, telling them, okay, let's go again, try this, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think of like back when the three Hobbit films were coming out, but specifically Desolation of Smaug, because that's kind of Smaug's big dialogue heavy one is the behind the scenes, and Benedict Cumberbatch was exactly an example of that. And here we go, another traditionally trained actor, and you watch him behind the scenes, and I feel like, and this is me trying to remember at this point, I feel like at one point it was like they got like a mattress or something because he was on like and set up the rig because he was on like all fours, like getting so physically into being the dragon. But I mean, and he's stellar. He does an excellent job voicing this big ass fucking dragon. And
Yeah,
Smog is a chatty boy. Let's be
yeah.
real. It's kind of almost comical to me how chatty Smog is, but he does it with such, when you actually watch him behind the scenes, he is so physically into the role. And it's just like, and then you read them being like, yeah, you almost feel like they're incorporating some of his physicality and like facial expression. The same thing happened with Andy Serkis, where he so physically embodied Gollum and not just the motion capture and also being on screen, but they started incorporating his own facial expressions into the style of
Yep.
animation, because now it's called, this actor isn't just informing the voice, they are informing the character. And this is why voice actors are fucking actors.
Yeah. Straight up.
Yeah.
Um, but to get back
We've gotten
to
so
the
far off
Toxic
the line.
Avenger, um,
I
getting
mean,
getting
we are
back
trying to
to
balance the heavier topic with lighter weight
yeah,
things.
yeah. So uh, I will say that I don't know if you looked it up there, but there's a great website for a certain aspect of what your issue was with the Toxic Avenger, which was the dog,
I think I know
called
which
"Does
site.
the Dog Die?"
I was just thinking of that. Yeah.
Mhm. I don't know if you looked it up there, but it's a fantastic resource, and I think they incorporate more than just dogs now. I
Yeah.
think they incorporate like all animals, or at least most.
I've read that.
Um,
I've looked up the site, and they do more than just animals. It is now more about, is there anything that could be potentially traumatizing, or not traumatizing, triggering to people with certain experiences in that film. So especially I've seen that one pushed as just a great resource, especially if you are uncertain if a film is going to be triggering for you, especially if you've gone through some experience that makes you wary of going into certain films. And I think that is completely fair. I think that's a thing where I appreciate the way society has conversations now about some of these things now, because I think it's very valid to say to people, you know, certain things are uncomfortable. It's why it's so important to us to say it to our viewers, to the Voidwalkers, that some of
yeah,
what we talk about, and try to give you all some heads up when we know we're going to be talking about topics that may bring up difficult things for persons, individuals. So,
yeah. Um, yeah, we're getting better about it.
yeah.
It's been kind of a fight, but we're getting better about it.
Yeah. Well, I think some
Um,
of our earlier episodes, we just didn't really think about it when we were having those conversations. And so it's been in re listening that we've realized, oh, yeah, we should say something.
well, also I meant more societal
Oh,
general.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense. My
yeah.
brain just jumped
Like
to a totally different thing.
let me see here. I don't
Yeah.
remember if it's
No.
in here.
No, and I agree.
Um,
Society's not perfect, but it's been better, and it's kind of taken a tooth and nail, like, no, we need to talk about this.
yeah.
You know?
Because I know that there are even like books now where they'll have content warnings at the beginning.
Yeah.
Some of them do it in a way that I think is kind of shitty. Um, and that's if you want to check about content warnings, you can go to this website, and that's where the content warnings are, as opposed to like listing them in the book proper before uh, the story itself.
It's like, do
Um,
some extra work, but we hope you don't, so that you just read the book and fuck you.
yeah, it's a lazy way of doing it.
Yeah.
It's very much also like possibly a way that some of them could, I don't know, set up advertisers or something like that on their website to also get ad money for
Yeah.
people who are checking content warnings. Not to say that everybody's doing that. I'm not directly accusing anybody. I'm just saying that that's a potential thing that could happen.
It doesn't seem like a
Um,
reliable way, if especially if you, in all true seriousness and genuineness, want to make sure that there's a warning because you think something you're discussing in your book may impact certain people in a certain way. It feels like
yeah,
that's just, there's a lot of risk to it, because also you have to maintain the website. Now you have
yeah,
to own the address. It's like, what happens when that expires and somebody 10 years down the line goes to look that up because they're like, I want to know because I'm not sure about this, and then they can't find it.
yeah. And for people who are like, well, I don't want content warnings in my book, because get over it. Here's what you could do. If say this is a content warning here, right? Watch this.
Oh my gosh, what did you do?
Oh no. Where'd the content warning go?
He turned the
Oh
fucking
no.
page.
It
It's so
vanished.
That's so, well, you know what that makes me think of? And it's the thing that cracks me up. Because it's that sort of people get so, like, there are people who get so butthurt of, why do we have to have this there? Everyone should just get over it. And it reminds me of when Disney added parental controls to Disney Plus. Because they were going to start putting on some of, because they they'd acquired all what were the Netflix Marvel shows, which are all obviously not kid friendly shows. They are way heavier in material and everything.
Yeah.
They're excellent shows, and Disney understanding that we own all this content now and have also owned some of this content for ages that we could put on here, and it helps our audience because we have people out there who actually want to engage with this,
Mhm.
so it's a good business decision for us to show it. So part of a smart business decision is, well, we're going to do like all the other platforms out there now and have parental controls in place so that no worries, parents, your kids still can't watch the stuff you don't want them to watch. It's okay. And I remember reading though that there were legit people who got mad that Disney put parental controls in place on Disney Plus because Disney's not supposed to be like that. And I want to sit there and be like, what the fuck?
Liz,
What the
Liz, they're
fuck?
called snowflakes and they melt at the slightest warmth
I
given
know.
to them.
And it's so funny because to me, I'm like, you do realize, like, you're getting mad that Disney's helping you. Like, you
Yeah.
would be mad if they didn't put those in place. Your kid might, God forbid, go watch something out there
The
that,
Punisher.
yeah, the Punisher, and be traumatized because they don't understand why John Bernthal is beating these guys with a hammer, because they're too young to process the amount of violence that is. And you're going to be mad at Disney because how dare you put this content on Disney and not make it so that my child can't watch it. But so instead they go, we're going to preemptively put those controls in place so your child doesn't accidentally watch it. How dare you make it so I have to be responsible for what my children watch? That's really what it is. How dare you
Yeah.
make me have to be involved in my children's, like, how dare you make me do work? It just, it to me, it comes back to, and it's a whole different topic of the conversation, folks, but parents, you are responsible for your children. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So like content warnings, they're fantastic.
Hmm.
And I think that we should have more of that,
Yeah, I think it's hugely
in
helpful.
general.
I appreciate even that,
'Cause
like, Netflix will have, like, in the corner, like, depending on the episodes, will have, like, a, hey, this contains XYZ.
yeah. Because like I did earlier, for our audio only folks, all you have to do with a book is just turn the page and you're on the next page. Look at that.
I know, I
It's a
know,
miracle. Praise be.
I
Praise be
know.
the Son. Um,
It's so funny how it's such it's comical how much of a hot button issue it is when it's really not. It's exactly what you said. It's snowflakes being snowflakes because they have to take some personal responsibility. And that's really
yeah,
what it comes down to, I think, is what it is it's like, where is the line? My dog just laid down and shook my entire desk. Just why
there's
everything
the
just
line.
rattled.
Canvas.
He just hit the
Um,
back bar and my whole desk just rattled.
yeah.
So,
But you make a good point. Is like part of figuring out the line. Because some people have different lines than others.
yeah,
Because there's the line that we kind of already discussed a little bit, which is intention versus not intention. And then there's some lines where some people their line is in a different position than others, right?
exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
for example, there might be somebody who absolutely cannot watch something that involves essay, even if that content is discussing it in a responsible way that is important to the topic,
Yeah.
right? Some things they just cannot do it,
Yeah.
right? And that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. Well, like an animal
Others
dying.
it might be,
Animals dying
yeah,
on screen, honestly, is a very, very common one I've known about for years because I have family members who are like, does it die? No,
yeah.
they won't watch it.
Or if it's something where there's a possibility of like violence toward children, right? Like,
Yeah.
say a newer parent, who might not have been sensitive to that before, but because they become a parent, their life changes, their perspective shift, right?
Hmm.
Things in the world become different for them, and
Yeah,
therefore certain things that they might not have minded so much in the past now take on a different tone. And
exactly.
so, for example, in Halloween 2018, where the kid and his father are driving and they see the bus that's wrecked,
Oh yeah, you're
you
right.
know,
Yeah.
there's that moment where the kid gets out after his father's dead, and then goes back to the car. Myers kills that kid.
Yeah. And
Like
they
that kid is done.
yeah. And I will say of it, because I was almost surprised when they did that when I watched it.
Yeah.
I will say I don't want to say they did it respectfully, but they did it as for
It
being
wasn't
on
as
screen,
graphic.
it was not done gratuitously. It was done in probably about
Yeah,
the cleanest way you could do it, but it was
yeah,
still, yeah, it was still a kid got killed on screen.
yeah.
That
Which is
simple.
rare to happen nowadays, especially.
It's very
Um,
rare. I actually use that used to jokingly when the little small anecdote sideways of when a friend and I watched Zombies of Mass Destruction many years ago, and this is a grade B zombie movie. It's also one that is so over the top and ridiculous, it's hysterical. But I remember there being a point in the movie, and it is actually the funniest part of the movie because it is, to me, it's the funniest part because it's so over the top and ridiculous, and you see it coming. The main character is running through like isolated street somewhere in the woods, and she runs into a little girl who's freaking out. And this is like maybe like a somewhere between like 8 and 10 years old little girl scared, and the little girl's scared, and the girl grabs her, and the little girl's freaking out, and she's like, no, no, don't worry, stay with me, I'm gonna take care of you, I'm gonna make sure nothing happens to you. And I remember looking at my friend going, I didn't even say it, but I remember thinking, this is a B movie. They just told us they're gonna kill this child on screen. And literally, the next shot is the fakest. Like, they hit like a mannequin, probably with a string tied on it, so when it yanks up in the air, and a cargo van drives and hits it, and yanks up in the air. And the young woman, the next scene is holding a dismembered arm that looks pretty damn fake and starts screaming. And I'm like, but this is so. And I mean, it's not for everybody. To me, to us, it was hysterical because it was, are they really? Yeah, they're going to. They're going to. And they're going to do it in the most absurd way possible.
I
But it's, again, to me, it's like, I remember at the time consciously thinking only grade B, like, films are gonna, like, go as far as to just overtly kill a child on screen. Because they
yeah,
don't, they already, the ones that know what they are don't care.
yeah. Or like you, you're what you just talked about there reminded me of this moment, and I know it's a quick tangent, but there was this moment in pro wrestling where they were doing some sort of like baby angle or something like that. And so one of the ladies comes out and she's got like a baby in her arms, and it's a fake baby, right? You could tell, like it's like a plastic doll. And the heel's in the ring, and they're doing their back and forth. He grabs the doll and punts it into the audience. I'm just like, wow.
And they're moments that are so ridiculous that to many of us they're funny because they're so over the top they're unbelievable.
Yeah, it's just insane.
Yeah, but
And
it's still kind of, though, because then jumping back to 2018 Halloween, where it's not done over the top, it's not done
yeah,
ridiculously, it's actually done with a very relevant to the plot and the story sort of way, which makes that harder to digest
yeah,
and creates more of a tension shock because it's also the intent in that, and because I think, again, done with intent. Again, this doesn't mean it's for everybody, but it's done with intent. It's that Michael doesn't care. Like, they've
yeah.
sort of hint at it maybe a little bit more in Halloween Kills when they go back into the minds of some of the kids who survived Michael, but that he really doesn't care. If you're in his way, he's gonna kill you. And you could be an
Generally,
adult, you could be a child,
yeah.
you know.
Um, the one thing that surprised me was that he didn't do anything to the baby in the crib in, uh, I think it was
That other
Kills.
house. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
the
no,
house.
it's I think it's actually in the first one because it's part of that long sequence, that long
Yeah, it was a
continuous
long
sequence.
sequence.
Yeah,
Was that in 2018?
yeah, that's 2018.
Yeah,
2018 has the
because
long sequence because it's while he's still because Kills picks up after he goes to Laurie's cabin.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that long sequence happens, and you see him standing over the crib, and then because he hasn't been messing around, and you
no.
know that he does not care for whatever reason. He just moves on past the baby,
I feel like you
and
could argue that for him, the child like babies don't even register.
could be.
Like it's almost like to them, there's to it's like I almost feel like you could argue that babies don't register to him, and that part of that joy is coming from people with sort of a conscious awareness of him. You know,
Hmm.
maybe the fear factor, because they do call him what the shape and the fear factor. And a baby's not necessarily going to conceptualize. It's not that it won't feel pain or anything like this, but it's not going to conceptualize his presence the same way even a 10, 12-year-old would. I mean, the little kid at the house with the babysitter, who I'm pretty sure we could argue that kid survives because he nopes the fuck out of there as soon as everything
Yeah,
goes wrong. I love that kid,
smart,
by the way.
smart kid.
That kid is so great.
Yeah, that actor's really good.
He
I hope he's
is.
doing more stuff.
Kudos to you,
Um,
child. You are wonderful. It was a
yeah,
shining moment with him. Honestly, he
it
was just like,
he brought a great amount of levity to that movie in that moment, even when it's mixed with the horror of what goes on with the babysitter.
it wasn't at the
Like,
expense of the horrifying moments of the scene.
yeah, it was really well balanced in an odd way.
It was.
That's kind of hard to quantify,
Especially
but
when you consider that
that
Halloween is not one of the more, like, I expect levity in, like, say, Nightmare on Elm Street, when you consider the
mhm,
original one and the way Robert Englund played Freddy. You don't
yeah.
really get that levity in Halloween. Like in the original Halloween, it's not so much. The levity is maybe it's not the same thing.
He has a couple moments though. Myers particularly has a couple moments.
Which ones are you
I'll
thinking
give
of?
you my favorite example. So he goes over to where PJ Souls, I think her name is Linda
Oh my
in the
gosh, you're
movie,
right. That
and
scene.
yeah, he takes the boyfriend and eliminates the boyfriend, and then when he comes up, he's got a blank like a
The
ghost
sheet.
sheet
He
on
does the sheet
with
in the
the
glass.
glasses of the boyfriend.
Yeah.
Like he's being a prankster in that moment.
It's
Like there's no other reason for it
it's
because
funny because you know exactly who it is. And then,
yeah,
okay, can we say there's a little bit of an irony there that he chokes her with the phone cord? Because she's called
uh,
and they were hanging up like, you know, they'd gotten the phone calls from like Lori and then they were taking the phone off the hook. And PJ is just like one of those, PJ Soul's character is like the just like, I'm going to pick up the phone and call somebody and talk about who I just boned. I don't know,
oh
whatever.
yeah,
You know, it's that
I
sort of
think
vapid teenage girl.
yeah, I think there was a scene earlier where they did a phone thing, maybe, but I don't remember. But yeah, like there's a moment like that where he's an absolute like prankster. He's just being a joker for that moment.
Yeah. Well,
Because
that's
like
that's
there's
the
no other thing that would explain it. He doesn't care if somebody actually sees him,
Yeah,
you
and
know?
that's the closest in that film I think we come to the levity showing up right at the point of tension. It's kind of right before the point of tension because it's building. It's part of how they're building up the tension is by doing this humorous thing
Yeah.
that the audience is going, "Girl, girl, you're gonna die. You're gonna die."
Yeah.
I think that's the one difference though with 2018 is 2018 they managed to balance having the levity take place at the same time. You know, he bursts out of the closet, starts killing the babysitter, and the kid's like, "Oh shit, nope." And you hear
Yeah.
the kids saying that. To me, there's also
Yeah.
an authenticity of it, of it's like people do actually have reactions like that where they're almost comical in
Mhm.
how like sort of mundane they are, but they're panicking.
Yeah.
You know? I love that kid.
Yeah.
That kid is
It's
great.
so fantastic. I hope he's doing a lot more things.
We wish you all the
Um,
best, child.
yes, please. Uh,
Especially since you're
but
not a
yeah, like
child anymore. That was like, what, 7 years ago?
yeah, something like that. Um, but yeah, so there's those moments, you know. Um,
Hmm.
but when it comes to like things like kids and whatnot, and the perspective of people, right?
Yes,
Um, Figuring out where that line is can be challenging.
it really
And
can.
I think part of it is kind of, it's going to sound weird when I say this. I think part of finding it is exploring it. And what
Yeah.
I mean is exposing yourself to it some.
Yeah. In some
And
controlled aspect.
yeah. And that's not to say like somebody may not just know when something will not work for them, right?
Hmm.
Like if you've had an experience that causes you to just like in real life, the moment that you think about it, you start feeling something that's like off or whatever. That just might be straight up like, okay, this is off the table for me.
Yeah.
But if there's something where you're like not sure or something like that, or you might think initially that it's fine, and then you go into a movie or a book or something like that, and you find that it's kind of hard to get through, that might be some kind of sign to help you like think about, is this something that is content that I don't think that I can like work with or want to work with or anything like that, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that that's healthy.
It is. And I think, and it's a part of that too, where I say, healthy parts of that also are you don't have to keep going with something just to complete. I mean, I know it's hard for a lot of people, but if something's getting difficult to digest, it is okay to stop reading it, stop watching it, stop listening to it. Maybe for you, it's you need to step away from it for a while, whether that's a few hours, a few days, fuck, a few years, and come back to it later. I've had things that I've come back to later as an adult, and my perspective's different. Maybe my experience is different. Um, I've also had things where I'm like, no, I'm not touching that ever again. You know, or things where I'm like, I will, but I only would be willing to under certain circumstances. And even then, like, like we've joked of like, I watched The Grudge in high school. It traumatized me. I almost feel like it could legit. I didn't sleep normally for a year. I actually had trouble going to sleep at night every night, like after for the rest of that school year after I saw that movie, because it was constantly like seeing shapes in the night. It just hit because it was such a deeply spiritual, like haunting demon creature. That movie found a way to really get under my skin. Once I
Yeah.
rearranged my bedroom in the summer, I went back to sleeping normally. It was great. It made me very cautious, and afterwards my introduction to horror was much more organic in terms of like I think the first time I saw anything related to a horror movie was years later when I came home and there was a friend staying with our family for a while, a friend of a friend's, and he was staying with us for the summer because he was at our place from overseas, so he stayed with my family. And I came home and he was watching Resident Evil Apocalypse, which I'd never seen. I had no real exposure to Resident Evil at that point, other than knowing what it was. But it was a totally different set of circumstances where my brain still was going, this is a little intense and a little creepy. Like I came in on the school scene when the reporter goes through the school and runs into the children. And that scene's kind of creepy, especially if you've not really seen anything else horror wise. But I will say that context where I was just sitting on the couch, I'm coming into the movie halfway after being out all day. I've got a friend there. The lights are all on. Everything about the circumstances was way more safe for me that it actually raised my intrigue at the end of it. And yeah, I mean, now I watch those movies and basically have them memorized. But, like back on The Grudge, though, that was the impact it had immediately on me on horror. And then, yeah, I told you, a few months ago or a few weeks ago, I can't remember, I was watching like a top 10 like haunted house movies list, and they showed maybe a 10 to 30, I don't think it was even 30 seconds. It was probably more like 15 to 20 seconds of that same Grudge film. This is the Sarah Michelle Gellar one. And when I say thinking that it's on my TV, the lights are on, I'm in my apartment, whatever. When I say I felt my chest go tight and my blood pressure start to like spike up and I could feel it like there was it's not even really my blood pressure. I felt my chest go tight and I felt tension go all the way up through my neck. Like I just felt like an immediate like bone deep tension to where I was like, "Oh fuck. I thought that over 10 years later I might now be able to digest that movie. And when I tell you it was a holy fuck, that movie is still fucking terrifying to me on a very deep level. And I've told you the only way I will be willing to watch it is like if we and friends get together and watch it, one, the lights had better be fucking on. I am going to be allowed to talk. If somebody says, Liz, no, you need to shut up and watch it, I'm like, no, I will yell at that movie and you gotta fucking deal with it because this is a coping mechanism. If I can't make fun of it, all bets are off. But I still don't know. I may get like if we ever do a watch party and I watch it and I get to be too much, I may just get up and be like, I'm gonna go play Resident Evil now. you know? So be warned, I might just interrupt us and be like, need palate cleanser. But again,
Well, Bill Pullman's scenes are the scariest thing.
I don't even remember his scenes. I literally do not remember. I forgot that he was in it. Like, I can't even picture a single scene that he is in that.
He did really good for not having many lines or things to do in that
Yeah.
movie. Yeah,
I don't know
but
why
like
my brain doesn't remember he was even in it, though. I'm like, it just like wrote
that
Bill
sounds like
Pullman out of the movie.
yeah.
But that's going back to what I was saying of, you know, exposing yourself in controlled circumstances and giving yourself the grace to have limitations and respect those within yourself as you learn them. Being able to say, you know what, if I'm not comfortable, me being able to look at look objectively and go, I'm not liking Toxic Avenger. I'm going to turn it off. And I'm one of
Yeah.
those people who will push myself through other movies, but it's like sometimes, but now it's like, no, but you don't have to make yourself watch it if you really don't like it. And admittedly, for the benefit of like this, I was watching it for the benefit of having a little more perspective coming into this. And I think I was talking to my mother about it. And I was like, or no, it's my dad. And I was like, yeah, the beauty of it is whether I watched it all the way through, liked it, disliked it, or shut it off, that was going to tell me something and inform part of the perspective I had coming into this episode. Because the whole point of it was to watch something that was more in topic. But I think
Yeah.
that, and for people also, I'm like, know what your palate cleansers are. For me in high school, watching The Matrix was a way to get myself out of my head. Like, and we're talking OG Matrix. That was how I got Clockwork Orange out of my brain. Nowadays, it's probably going to be that I'm going to go play video games, watch Resident Evil. I'll probably just throw on like South Park or something if I have no energy to do anything else. It's it's okay to go digest something that's comfortable to you to cope with something that was uncomfortable.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, and I will say that one of the things that I watched for this show was Terrifier, um,
You are
which
a saint.
which is a movie series that stars this guy. I forget his name. It's David something.
Yeah.
Um, but he plays Art the Clown, and Art the Clown is a silent, murderous clown who,
You may know him from memes because he is very memeable.
yeah, he has a look that's incredibly memeable. Um, and the movie was, well, it was part of my exploration, particularly of like splatterpunk versus extreme horror,
Hmm.
which we'll touch a little bit more on, I guess, like in a bit. Um, but it was about this clown who terrorizes a few women, specifically, and like the the way that it worked reminded me of if Eli Roth did Tromaville.
And we know you have
Um,
feelings about Eli Roth.
yeah, I hate Eli Roth. I think he's a garbage bin. And this person who made up Terrifier is basically Roth light, like indie Roth. I think is a better way to put it. Um, and this isn't to throw shade at independent films
Yeah.
or independent shorts or anything like that. Like, I have a great respect for independent stuff. I've done independent stuff. Like, we've worked on independent stuff together.
Yeah.
E as well has worked on stuff with us and other things.
That's pretty much how we all
Um,
met each other.
yeah, that's kind of how we met each other is through the indie film scene, in in the state. Um, and so like I understand limitations. I understand budget and all that stuff. I completely get it. Um, and you can tell like with the first Terrifier that they had an indie budget, but they had a little more than the usual what we would have as an indie production.
Yeah.
Um, and you could tell where the money went, and the money went to being gross. It went to gore. Um, and there are gorehounds out there, which is, for those who don't know, gorehound is a moniker name for people in horror who love the gore aspect of things, who love the chunky bits
Yeah.
of violence that come with horror.
Love Rob
And if
Zombie's
that's not
Halloween,
there,
probably.
yeah, all that hillbilly garbage. And it, bless them, there's a subgenre of horror dedicated to them, uh, which we'll touch on. But uh, well, I guess we're touching on it now.
Yeah.
But uh, if there was a point to Terrifier, I would be a little more accepting of it. But because there isn't a point to it, I'm just like, it's about a clown who tortures and brutalizes and murders mostly women. There's like one or two guys in there, but it's mostly women,
Yeah.
and it sucks, and I hate it. Um, and I watched it only for this podcast, and
Bless you.
while I don't regret it for this podcast, I regret it for every other reason and purpose behind it.
I think
Um,
those films fall under for us the make you need brain bleach.
yeah, and so I watched Terrifier 2, um, and the budget was improved a little bit. They actually got a name in there, and that name is Chris Jericho for you wrestling fans out there, um, who still looks like he is too old to
No,
be a wrestler now,
no,
uh, and
no,
he
no,
um,
no.
he Art the Clown had died in the previous movie, and then got brought back by a demon, which there was none of that in the previous movie. And I guess you can kind of argue some movies, like the Friday the 13th movies and stuff like that, initially don't start with like supernatural elements or whatever. But this one felt really heavy handed with it. It felt like, well, we want to make another Terrifier, but we killed our villain off. What do we do now? Demon. Do demon thing. And demon bring Art back to life. Um, and then guess what? He does it again. He he second verse same as the first. Nothing was learned except that the main character, the main protagonist, uh, a young woman, actually did some fighting back and actually came off a little bit better uh, than the previous movie would have you expect. Uh, the fact that that's the only good thing I could really say about that movie uh, should be testament to how bad that series is.
Yeah.
I did not watch the third movie. I thought about it, but I decided better to not do that.
You took enough for
Um,
the team in watching two of them because I read a synopsis and that was it.
yeah, that's probably all you. That's all you need. If you're curious at all, read a synopsis.
That was enough
It
for
doesn't
me to
matter.
know. That was enough for me to know that I didn't want to see it. Like,
There, there are people who want Art the Clown in stuff like Dead by Daylight. Like there are people who want that. And granted, like the Five Nights at Freddy's is going to be a chapter in Dead by Daylight. There's a killer, there's a map, so like that's already solidified and whatnot,
mhm.
and that sucks because Five Nights at Freddy's sucks. But that's
This is not
that's
a
getting off track
yeah.
of
Just know this is not
Uh,
a friendly to Five Nights at Freddy's podcast, folks.
yeah. Um, Getting back to art, um, they want him on there, but of all the cameos and all the killers and stuff that they've had in that game, that would be the most vapid choice.
Yeah.
Um,
It
because
doesn't
at
really
least with
feel it doesn't really feel like there'd be anything else other than just putting Art the Clown in.
yeah, I guess it's a matter in part of like a lot of the characters is a lot of the characters in Dead by Daylight have a certain purpose. They have a certain level of like I don't want to say responsibility, but like there's reason to them, you know? Like Myers has a reason for existing in the world, and I mean like in film and everything like that too, right?
Yeah.
Same for Freddy, same for Bubba. Uh, like they all serve a purpose, right? They all have an intention to them. Art the Clown has nothing.
Yeah.
Like he just me clown, me brutalize, me kill.
It's like somebody who went
And
clown scare people, and so we're just gonna put a really violent clown on screen and make them do violent things, and
yeah,
that is very vapid. That there's no depth or story or lore to that that feels like could be
like
brought over to DBD, which that's something even with characters they're bringing in from outside of their own internal lore, like the ones they're
yeah,
creating from the ground up, they're bringing in characters that have kind of origins, have lore, have a purpose, have an intent.
yeah. And Dead by Daylight has a clown that's murderous already, and he's got more backstory and stuff like that to him than Terrifier ever will.
I think he's
You
way
know?
more interesting too, because he's. Are you talking about the one that like can also like they have like the weird little like potion things they can throw or whatever?
Yeah,
Yeah, and that to
yeah,
me is more interesting. Whereas I'm like, all I got when I read the synopses on Terrifier was blood and shit. That's like Art's go-to,
yeah. That's it. Um,
and I'm
you
like,
know, like
that doesn't really work. Dead by
if Dead by
Daylight, I
Daylight,
feel like that doesn't work for it.
yeah, if Dead by Daylight wanted to bring a clown to its game that's like a license, they could get in touch with ICP and get big money hustlers in their realm.
Yeah, they'd be better
Like
off bringing in it.
we're gonna show a picture of big money hustlers, like a still frame of it, and that's
Yes.
it. That's all that it's worth.
Yeah.
Uh, or or they could do killer clowns from outer space as well, but that might be well. I don't think it would be the most challenging.
I feel like they could do
Uh,
it even because there's a lot of lore behind it and also like some of the
they
deeper
could
lore
do
in the story.
they could do it the clown,
Yeah.
also known as Pennywise, but I
Thank you.
like
That
saying
was
it
what
the
it was.
clown.
I couldn't
Uh,
remember the name was Pennywise.
yeah, I just like saying it the clown
I
because
love it
it's
too.
very funny.
Yeah.
Um, but Killer Clowns from Outer Space actually has an ASIM out
Really?
there. It's just that it's not doing very well.
Ah.
Uh, so like I don't know. Um, but there's a few clown options that's not Art the Clown that they could pull from, and
Yeah.
it would be better.
I think in their tendency to try to go towards classic media, I'd also argue I'm like art's way too niche. Way like
Yeah,
just on a business level, I'd be like art is way too niche because it only is going to appeal to people who really have seen that, and that is so niche. You know, because yeah, that's I know there's an audience out there that enjoys it. I've looked at people who've been like, "This is great," and I'm like, "I ew," like that's all I could
yeah,
think of. And I don't want to discredit people's perspectives, but to me, those films don't serve any purpose at all other than to be violent and coincidentally, even if there's no intention behind it, violent towards women. And I'm like,
yeah,
that to me just feels like and and again, I'm not trying to say that these directors are sexist or anything, because again, some of this may just be coincidental. Women in horror, there are lots of common tropes associated with women in horror going back decades. But a lot of
Mhm.
times these films that have a lot of violence against women are written and directed by men.
Yeah.
And that just as a woman makes me, as somebody who's not just born and raised as a woman, but I still identifies as a woman too. I'm like, that just to me is like, I'm not comfortable with that. Especially if there's not, it needs to make sense why it's there. Nosferatu, it makes sense why it's there because it's criticizing. And it's really not just criticizing women. It's using maybe the lens of women's experiences, but really it's criticism of victims and surviving sexual violence. That could go for any victim, male or female. You know, it uses the lens of women because that is the story.
Yeah.
So it's
Um,
very strange.
Another one that I want to bring up on that vein is this book that I've read here, which hopefully it's not flipped. On my camera, it's in reverse,
Ah,
but it's Cruel Angels Past Sundown by Haley Piper. It's a
okay.
signed copy.
Well, if it's
Um,
flipped, we can always
it's
make sure that our little window has a non-flipped version of it.
yeah, yeah. Um, it is a splatter western. So
Interesting.
splatterpunk meets western,
Ooh.
right? And it's about a woman who uh, lives alone with this guy, um, and this pregnant lady comes to their ranch and almost kills her, kills the guy. She runs away, and there's this preacher who's running after her who views her as unclean, and so it explores like her relationship between her and the guy that died, her and this other woman with whom she's in love, uh, her inability and non-desire to have children, her place in society as a woman and as a person, expectations and all that stuff is explored in this, which includes a religious bent. So there's some religious exploration alongside societal expectations of where women are in positions at the time. And there's certain points in it which could apply to today as well. Um, there's some gore in this as well,
Hmm.
splatterpunk western, right?
Yeah.
Um, but those things have purpose. They mean something in the book. There's certain signs that exist that require certain aspects of gore to indicate that something is going on. Um, certain fights that occur have those moments, but they're not everywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's not like it's Toxic Avenger where if you're not covered from head to toe, you're not going through double dare.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, Mark Hoffman's even
so
like I think there's a quote of him saying that his idea was to see how much he could throw at an audience to keep them in their seats by keeping them shocked.
yeah,
So there's
um,
it's not an intent in the story, it's an intent in kind of a like almost testing a hypothesis.
yeah. Um, this book does not do that. This book is purposeful with it, and in my explorations of splatterpunk and um, extreme horror, uh, that seems to be the core difference is intention versus non-intention.
Yeah.
Intention, for example, being like Books of Blood, right? Clive Barker being one of the premier splatterpunk authors. Um, for example, like The Midnight Meat Train, which is also a movie that was made with Bradley Cooper and Vinnie Jones.
Okay.
Um, and the story itself is about a guy who comes to New York and he loves New York, right? Like he loves the vibe of the city and whatnot. But when he gets on the subway, he encounters this guy who starts killing people on the train. And there's not very many people on the train, um, but the guy starts killing people on the train. And the purpose is to feed uh, the beings that exist inside of New York to keep New York going,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's commenting on 80s New York and the vibe of the time and what New York was doing to people, right? Common people that you wouldn't miss
Yeah.
are the primary targets, right? And so things happen in the story to where the protagonist winds up defeating that butcher, but in turn becoming the butcher.
Yeah.
And so he takes up the mantle of the previous guy. There's moments that's very gory, but they serve purpose.
Yeah.
You know, um, Barker tends to do that, serving purpose with the things that he does, right? Um, Things like Hellraiser are very gory in moments, but they're also very sensual. They're very close, right? Um,
And there's something
and
very
so,
specific about what they're doing.
yeah, and you can see a lot of sensuality in Barker's explorations through a lot of his stories. Another good example is I forget what short story it was in one of the books of blood, but Candyman,
Mm.
right?
And that
Candyman
this is what
has
has been adapted into the film?
Candyman.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, I forget the name of the title of it before, but Candyman originally Candyman was not black. It didn't have that aspect to it. But when the person who wanted to make that into a movie took it on, they wanted to do that, and Barker was like, "Go for it, hell yeah!"
Hmm.
Um, and so we got a slightly different Candyman in the movies, which I think is more compelling,
Yeah.
right? Um, and there are moments of gore in that movie, um, just like in the story. There's moments, but those things serve a purpose to them.
Yeah.
You know, um, it's exploring a certain aspect of society that we don't normally talk about. And I know we mentioned it before on the podcast, but horror is an avenue that allows people to safely or more safely explore topics they wouldn't otherwise be comfortable or able to do so.
Yeah.
And so part of that discussion is the line
Yeah.
and thinking about the line where it is and if it's something that you can, maneuver with, or if it's something where you have to kind of like take a step back from it and whatever you need to do.
Yeah. And it lets, well, horror allows, through the lens of horror, essentially, you can visually and story-wise explore perhaps things in a more extreme way. And in some ways, it's pushing that line with people to get them to think about things differently. So it's not necessarily pushing the line isn't bad, but there are better ways to do it, and it's not always going to land with everybody, especially depending on their experiences, or to be quite frank, to put it bluntly, depending on how the media is promoted. You made me think of it with Hellraiser because Event Horizon is a big one I think of. Now, that's another fun one experience wise for me because growing up, we had a VHS copy of Star Trek First Contact. So, and then Captain Picard, the Borg on his ship, that First Contact. One of the trailers on that VHS, in fact, I think I still have the VHS on a shelf over there. One of the trailers on it is for Event Horizon because it was basically that Star Trek First Contact came out, and I think this VHS was specifically from when it came out, but one of the movies that was on the horizon was Event Horizon. I just realized that, like, little pun there, but was Event Horizon. And the age I remember seeing that trailer, because we didn't always own the VHS. I think we'd rented it, and then somehow we owned it somehow. Somewhere along the lines, we acquired the VHS copy, and that was how I saw the trailer. By that point, I had seen The Matrix. Have always been a huge fan of Jurassic Park. So to me, what stood out was, ooh, science fiction. Mystery suspense is what it really looked like, with like mystery suspense thriller, and then Sam Neill and Lawrence Fishburne. So for me, Dr. Grant and Morpheus. I'm like, I was very, very intrigued. And for years, we're talking like for years, anytime I would watch that VHS copy of Star Trek, because I was in the mood to watch Star Trek, I'd see the trailer for Event Horizon. I'd be like, this looks really intriguing. This looks really interesting. And this is as a kid seeing it, because the trailer really played up that there's a mystery. And I mean, I'm not going to say I'm into mysteries, but in hindsight, it's like it was playing up the mystery and that there's a thriller. There's something happening. It's going to be exciting and thrilling. It's going to be paced a little bit differently, like very suspenseful. Then fast forward to post-college. You know, again, remind you, I saw these trailers as pretty much a kid. Post-college, in my 20s, it is available on Netflix. And I'm like, Event Horizon! I've been curious about that for years, been so intrigued. I'm going to throw this on and watch it! Holy fuck. Because nothing in that trailer led me to ever even guess that I was going to be seeing Sam Neill get possessed by Satan in demon hell dimension that they stumbled across. It was so disturbing. So fucking disturbing. I was just like I was like, the fuck am I watching? This is not what I was expecting. And it's so funny because I know we've talked about it, and then I was talking with another friend recently about it, of how so much of that actually probably could have landed differently if they had promoted that film differently. It's so much of a case of the trailer gave zero indication of how extremely disturbed that film gets. And, you know, after I had seen the movie, I was starting to look up because I was just so thrown by it. I had to go on the internet and be like, the fuck, basically. And among things I came across that totally threw me because it just didn't register in my mind, it's the same director that did all the live action Resident Evil films with Mila Jovovich, Paul W.S. Anderson. And I'm like, the fuck? I like these movies. What the fuck is this? But then also was that reading that this movie in particular, when they'd originally screen tested it with audiences, they basically were ordered to remove like an hour and a half, or not maybe an hour and a half. I can't remember the exact amount, but it was a large chunk of the film Anderson was told to cut after it was screen tested because the audience was so upset and disgusted. Because in particular, especially, there's a moment in the film where I think there's a few moments, but there's one in particular where there's a flash where you get flashed across the scenes a lot of these clips of really gratuitous things happening, because this is really like hell, circle of hell, straight out of Dante's Inferno. I'll get into that later. Visuals, and so they're meant to be disturbing because they basically crossed a threshold into hell, because apparently hell, the doorway to hell, is in outer space. Whatever. But there was so much more in there. And the test audience was so completely disgusted by it that the studio was like, you need to take more of this out. Like, and it was a pretty large cut from the film that just has been lost to time, because he was ordered to remove it. And I'm like, okay, but then the way they marketed this film, and I get on some extent there's a studio urgency to market to as broad an audience as possible to get your people in, but it was so falsely marketed that I'm like, anybody I talk to about that film, almost everybody I know I've talked to about that film has gone through some form of that same level of disturbing where they weren't expecting it to come in when they went in. Or they learned of it and they knew about it a little bit, but didn't realize the scale of it, but they knew to expect it because somebody else had gone through that. And I'm like, to some extent, that's the only notable thing about the film, which almost to me does it a disservice. Like, there is a part of me that is willing to watch it again. The friend I was talking with about it, I told her, I'm like, if you would ever like to see it, I will willingly watch it again with you because I know what to expect now. And part of me is curious to sit down and watch it now from a perspective of this isn't shocking to me anymore. But like, I was thinking about it while we were talking, and I remember looking at her and going, honestly, if this film had been marketed like a Hellraiser film, it probably would have landed way better with audiences. Because really, that's what I find it comparable to, is that level. It's almost more extreme, but also I'm like, I think if you'd said, hey, this is a film that we mean to appeal to like Hellraiser people who like Hellraiser, that kind of an audience, it would have done better. But the way it was, it's deceptive to a fault. Because I'm like, you're going to force audience members to cross a line visually that they're not prepared for. Like, it's a film now that I would say, a film like that now should have a disclaimer for content at the beginning because it is very shocking. But again, nowadays I'd be like, market it to the people who you know would want that film. And then carefully market it to the people who may be on the fence, but make sure you market it in a way that they have an inkling of what to expect. Because the way it was marketed completely loses it. And I think that's why you see the way that film gets its response now. And I'm like, I'm not sure it's a good thing that what it's noted for. When I have to
Yeah.
partly wonder, I'm like, when you've got such good actors in these roles and such skilled actors, that's part of why I want to go back. Part of me wants to go back and watch it now because, and frankly, having watched other of Anderson's films, say what you will about the Resident Evil films, there are some good themes that get explored there. I'm like, he may not make the best films on the planet, but I enjoy them, which makes me want to go back and have a different look at Event Horizon and be like, okay, I'm more familiar with your work. So let me see if I can watch this now objectively as somebody who appreciates other films this guy has made and the people who are acting in it and isn't just going to sit there being like, the fuck did I just see?
He also made the best of the
I
Mortal Kombat movies.
will say that I would love to do a double feature of Event Horizon and Cube. Because Cube is another one that's like really weird and bizarre along similar lines to Event Horizon.
Everything I've seen of the Cube, I feel like it's in the same family.
Yeah, it's really weird. But that's the one that I always think of when I think of Event Horizon is Cube as well.
Yeah.
But funny enough, I didn't realize this until maybe about a week ago. I have Event Horizon on DVD, and I didn't even know it.
It probably showed up in like a $5 bin or something somewhere, and you probably offhand grabbed it like, I'll watch this, and it's only $5, so if it sucks, whatever.
It might have. I don't know exactly what it was, but I picked it up somewhere along the way, so I have it, which is fantastic because I love Sam Neill. I love Lawrence Fishburne.
And see,
And
it's
so,
like these are two powerhouses, like in their prime too.
and what's funny is they also are people who play a lot of weird roles in horror. You got like Elijah Wood that we mentioned earlier. Also, these guys like Sam Neill was it Into the Mouth of Madness? He was an author,
Yes.
and he started going crazy.
He's
It was
He's the agent.
really
He's the agent,
bizarre.
not the author.
Um,
He's definitely done
or
some
like,
very strange roles. Like, it's funny. He's another actor where I swear, like, the role that I know him the most for is probably, like, the couple roles that I really know him for are his most tame roles. And that's Hunt for Red October
yeah,
as the first mate on the Russian submarine, and Jurassic Park as Alan Grant. And I'm like, those are probably his two tamest roles. Because, yeah, he has picked a lot of very experimental roles almost. And this one in Event Horizon is no exception. I mean, honestly, Lawrence Fishburne's the normal guy in that. you know.
and even he's done some weird stuff. Like, what was it called? Predators or The Predator? One of the Predator movies, the one with Adrian Brody. He's in it, and he's an antagonist in it.
Adrian Brody was
Because
in
he's
a
like,
Predator film?
yes, he was the
What?
lead character in a Predator film, believe it
What?
or not. Um,
What?
and, and it also has what's his name? Topher Grace in it as another bad guy. Uh, and Danny Trejo's in it too.
What?
Um, yeah, if this sounds like a medley of confusion, it is. Um,
It does!
it's not the worst Predator movie. It's not the best at all.
But maybe it's the most
It's just
chaotic?
really, it's really out there. I wouldn't even call it the most chaotic. It's just kind of like the most random casting.
Okay, so
Uh,
chaotic cast.
yeah, it's just chaotic casting, uh, because everybody just kind of like goes along, and Brody is trying to like sound tougher than he is.
Oh
Um, he has like a really like he's trying to put on a tough guy accent, or what he thinks is a tough guy accent, and it just doesn't work for him.
I can't
He
even
just doesn't
picture it.
sound.
And when to me,
He just
Predator is like the first one, the Schwarzenegger one.
yeah, like Schwarzenegger, Donald Glover,
Yeah,
no Danny Glover, Danny Glover. Like those are like the two like best ones, at least in my opinion. Obviously, the first one being the best.
yeah.
Um,
My
and
God.
then you like got weird ones. Like I think the strangest and like I would say most gratuitous is Alien versus Predator 2. If you can see what's going on in that movie, uh, it's it's pretty gruesome, and it crosses a line,
Mm.
um, which I don't even know if I want to say what it crosses.
It's definitely a line crosser.
It crosses a line, and I don't know how much it shows of it. I don't remember offhand. Um, it I yeah, I don't want to like talk about that. And I know that this is our crossing the line one, but that one's the one that crosses the line for me.
It
Um,
crossing to the point that we don't want to discuss it.
yeah. So
That's
like
fair.
for people who know, um, and maybe I'll get called a baby or something about it, but I don't care. Shut up. Uh, but it Yeah, so Lawrence Fishburne was in some really weird stuff where he was a villain of some kind, and he does a really good job as a villain. Him and Neil, which Neil, I haven't seen Hunt for Red October, but to
Oh,
me
that's
his two
good.
famous was Jurassic Park and The Piano, which funny enough, I think that has Adrian Brody in it as well.
Oh, interesting.
Um,
Yeah. And
I
Hunt
know
for
it
Red
has Harvey Keitel in it.
Yeah, I will just say Hunt for Red October, fun movie. Also, it was to this day I will stand by. It's the best Tom Clancy adaptation with the truest to the book's adaptation of Jack Ryan. Um, which is unfortunate, which makes it unfortunate that Baldwin is a difficult actor to work with because that was the first one to be adapted. And he was really the truest. He, to me, and I've talked to my folks who have read a lot more Clancy than I have, and they also have agreed with me. They're like, yeah, he was the closest to what you actually get in the book, which is a very does not come off as an action hero, mild mannered, somewhat geeky. Ford does a good job at representing that, but because there's so much of Harrison Ford's name goes along with these big action characters, it's hard to separate that. And then they've gone the total other rails with all these other Jack Ryan actors, and it's like, no, no, Baldwin was actually the closest to the book. Also, just excellent acting. I mean, you've got Alec Baldwin, Sam Neill, uh, my gosh, Sean Connery, uh, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on everybody's names here. James Earl Jones. Uh, even oh my gosh, his name is
Not Gene Hackman.
no, no. I'm trying to remember his
That's the
name.
one with Denzel Washington.
No, no. The doctor, the Russian doctor is Tim Curry. Tim Curry's even in it.
Oh, Tim Curry.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a ton of big names in that one, honestly.
Yeah.
So it's a very well done like
Mhm.
Cold War era film with suspense, submarine warfare, all the fun things. So that's my little aside. My camera is being wonky.
It is.
I know.
Um,
I'm gonna restart it, but let's keep talking.
I yeah, of course. And
Oh,
to our video folks, I do apologize for that, but we're gonna keep talking.
Look at my dog's face.
So yes.
actually, hold on, because they're
Oh,
seeing
go.
me. Okay, there we go.
Okay,
Okay,
we'll just snip that.
we will
Yeah.
fix that in post.
Yeah.
Okay, three, two, one. All right, so we're back. We got the camera. Looks like we got it fixed. Okay,
Fingers
so
crossed it works.
yeah, so we've talked about movies, shows. We talked about books a little bit. Video games with extreme horror. uh, and splattered punk,
Yeah.
and the line and other things like that.
And that's going to take us into
Um,
some other very, I think, interesting realms, especially given the criticism games have come under over various decades. So,
Most famously, Jack Thompson from the 90s.
yep. But yeah, games. Oi. So here's the
Um,
thing that's to me is interesting with games because violence in games has always been a hot button topic, especially among certain audiences. And you've got games that are much more casual about it, um, because it's sort of the intent to be ridiculous. Like I'm thinking GTA, you know, Grand Theft Auto, where the point is steal vehicles, cause mayhem.
yeah.
But even just violence in them. I mean, there were games as a kid that my mom didn't want me to play because she didn't want me playing violent games. And video games over the years have been criticized for violence in them, namely Mortal Kombat, a lot of your fighting games. Yeah.
Especially Mortal Kombat.
Well, and I
Um,
think to now that what was it, the Mortal Kombat that was released in 2023, I saw some clips from it, and rarely have I said a game was over the top, and I think Mortal Kombat, the newest, the 2023 one, went too far because it's so beyond gruesome that it's
is it the X-ray moves?
Mortal Kombat 1, by the way. It's Mortal
it's
Kombat 1.
yeah, it's all of just it's just a lot of the kill moves in it, and I've seen
Mhm.
a few different ones, and they are just so, and it's funny because some of them are just modern renditions of what were considered moves that these characters had way back in like early generations arcade forms of the games. But when you have pixelation and limitations of your graphic ability, it doesn't quite come off. It's a little campier, and so it doesn't it's gruesome, but it's campy because it's graphically like down here, and so it doesn't hit you the same way as when suddenly it's like, oh, we can render this now in high quality realistic graphics, and it's like I didn't want to see that in high quality realistic graphics at all. Like I didn't want to see that. It was nasty.
Interestingly, for me, it doesn't hit the same way. Um, and I think in part it's I don't know, for me, Mortal Kombat's always kind of been cartoony.
Yeah,
It's been kind of silly. It's been it's been a long road in a series. With ups and downs. To me, I think they peaked at Ultimate MK3, which was way, way back in the Super Nintendo era. Um, and then they just kind of fell off. And even when they came back with like Mortal Kombat X or 10 or whatever they want to call it, um, which is when people kind of started to really actually get back into Mortal Kombat, like it just never was really the same.
yeah,
It just felt kind of, I don't know, like it was just kind of boring to
yeah.
me.
I mean, I never really
Um,
got into Mortal Kombat. I think the only times my mom didn't really have qualms about me playing like fighting games when I was really young, um, were probably like arcades when I was playing with my brother, and I think then it was kind of the social aspect of you're playing a game with your brother. So, um, but otherwise, and again, this is just the nature of I grew up much more sheltered from it, and partly not because my parents were like, oh, she can't digest it, but they wanted to be very careful about where we were in emotional maturity. And my mom wanted to be very deliberate about what we were exposed to as kids. So, which was funny because there wasn't necessarily an issue with me watching like my brother play some of these games, but just, and I think some of it was not wanting the correlation of the action, which I think some of that also was born of the era. We're talking the 90s, and, you know, we know, unfortunately, because of events that took place in the 90s, especially the late 90s, that especially prompted conversations to start being like, is it the video games?
mhm.
And I have strong feelings because I'm like, no, it wasn't. As somebody who plays violent horror games for fun, it wasn't,
Mhm.
you know, but there was a lot of misunderstanding around then. And I mean, we also know what happened in the 80s with Dungeons and Dragons, too.
Yep. Let's say
So,
Satanic Panic.
yeah. And you saw, and I feel like the video games was just an evolution of that because it was a
Hmm.
niche culture thing, but it included, because video games for years, for a long time, have used the medium of games to explore unusual things in storytelling. Like you would get the occult, you'd get monsters and demons. I mean, look how far back Castlevania goes.
Hmm.
Some of these, all these fighting, and not even just the fighting games. Some of these games just go way far back, and it's like, come on, guys. When people are talking about Castlevania, they're not just talking about the newest stuff. That Castlevania is going all the way back to its roots,
Yeah.
and that's been around for a
Um,
long time.
yeah. And you make me think of things like Mazes and Monsters, the Tom Hanks movie from I think the late 70s, early 80s, probably early 80s because that was when D&D was really picking up. Where he plays a character who uh, gets in with a group of friends and they all play a D&D clone called Mazes and Monsters, and he's a cleric or a holy man is what he calls himself, Pardue the holy man, and he gets so lost in that character that he psychologically thinks that he is the character at that point. And it doesn't end great. I think it ends with him going to a asylum or a hospital,
Mhm.
um, as opposed to like you know Um, so that certainly didn't help things during the Satanic Panic,
No.
which is ironic because a lot of people believed that movie to have truth behind it.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is to me it's so it's funny, but I say funny loosely because it's not like, oh, it's comical. It's just sort of like ironically funny. Like it's like I can't help but laugh
yeah,
at it because of how ridiculous it was. Because, you look back on it like, the Satanic Panic and people being like D&D, it's making our kids do all these horrible things. And I'm like, like a large piece of inspiration behind Dungeons and Dragons was Tolkien. The Lord of the
yeah.
Rings was Tolkien's work was a massive influence on D&D. And yet at the same
Well,
and to me it goes along with the wait, Tolkien's okay, but God forbid my children read a story about children who are born wizards.
and then also like the origins of D&D being the war game chainmail, right?
Hmm.
Where it's just like war game, you have your armies, the opponent has their armies, and then Gygax and David. Oh, D&D fans are gonna kill me. David Arneson.
Don't kill us,
Uh,
D&D people.
yeah, I got his name. David Arneson and Gary Gygax. They got together. They're like, well, what if we just like focus on like a small group of like 3 to 5 characters, right?
Hmm.
And then we expanded on these characters a little bit, and thus D&D, right? And then it just kind of snowballed from there, um, revolutionizing what we have today as tabletop RPGs.
Yeah. It's a huge I
Um,
mean, I know people who like have regular D&D games that like, oh
yeah,
yeah, once a week we meet up, my D&D group meets up once a month or once a week.
yeah. I'm
Yeah,
in
you
one.
have
Shout out to Josh and
yes.
Rachel and DJ and Matt and Nick. I'm in one that's every other week.
Exactly.
Um, so
Yeah.
and I'm working on trying to get a couple going myself. Like I've got Legend of the Five Rings here for some Asian style RPG, or one that just came out, Daggerheart, the Matt
Hmm.
Mercer
Oh,
RPG.
yes.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause he's
like
he's big like in the
yeah,
especially like DMing and everything. Like he's been on other like podcasts that even talking about like world
yeah,
developing for like DMing and everything. It's like, wow. It's crazy.
yeah, and
It's
then
become a whole genre unto itself.
yeah, and then there's another guy who put out one, or well, it's in beta still. It's like 0.9.5 called DC-20, which is another fantasy uh, roll in a bunch of math rocks kind of style game.
Hmm.
You know, which is great, and I hope folks play those games and others because there's more games than D&D out there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, and I feel like D&D also had a lot of influence on, just tabletop co-op games.
yeah.
Like
Um,
massive influence.
so yeah. And so to swing it back around to the line, we've got this stuff with tabletop games into video games, right? And then we have that relax only to come back again, and more people are like, but these tabletop games, or these video games, right? Like I think one of the like sometimes it's just like a video game that causes a brief resurgence, like the game Hatred,
Mm.
which that game, are you familiar with it?
I am not, but you've mentioned it before.
Okay. So Hatred, essentially, when it was being made, imagine Nathan Explosion from Death Clock. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I don't know Death Clock well
All
enough
right.
to really.
Imagine a stereotypical metal guy who has very long black hair, ashen skin,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
eyeliner that makes him the blackest of black, right? Uh, and now he's wearing a trench coat and has a gun.
Yeah.
And your goal in Hatred is you start in your house and you go out and you kill as many people as you can before you die. That is the goal, and it's in black and white.
Oh, jeez.
That's what it is.
It's a vibe.
And the backstory of it is he hates everyone, he hates the world, he hates people, and so he's going to kill as many of them as he can before he dies.
Oh, jeez.
And people got really upset about it because obviously, right? Like it's really it's not saying anything.
Yeah, it's
It's
sort of
not it
unabashed
doesn't have
violence.
yeah, it doesn't have an intention to it. It's just violence for the sake of violence. So there's no artistic thing to it.
Yeah.
It's just go forth and do the gun shooty pulleys until you can't anymore. Um, and it came out at a time where you know, I guess it's not a time, because it's been going on for a while now in the country, where shootings are very prominent and prolific and happen way too often.
Yeah.
Um,
This country has a
you know,
problem with gun violence, to put
um,
it bluntly.
but it came out and people were complaining about it. And then it turns out it's not even really very good. I mean, like, I know that's not like a thing to like set aside the dumbness of it to where it's just like it's violent for the sake of violent.
Yeah.
That sucks. Um, People who pick it up now pick it up because they're memeing, because they're like, look at how bad this bad game did.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny now,
It's like
right?
it's a
Like,
bad idea, and it's just a bad idea executed badly.
yeah,
So
it's a bad
even like
idea executed
it's that
badly.
sort of like those in the world of like the gaming world are like, why are we using this example? We think this is dumb. It wasn't even
Yeah,
done well.
yeah.
Like we
It's
don't
a poor
objectively like it.
game.
We're not going to play this other than to make fun of it, essentially.
Yeah, it's a poor game with a poor idea and a poor execution with no intention behind it or anything like that. It's just a saggy sock.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it.
You can't make a
It's just
shit
a
look
saggy
pretty.
sock.
You can't make shit look pretty, and that's all
Yeah.
it is.
Um, so people have come back, over and over again, pointing to games like that, being like, these are too violent and yada yada. And to an extent, I think that there's a degree of sure, right? Like hatred, I think is worthless
Yeah.
because it's just violence for the sake of violence, and there's nothing it's trying to do or say or anything like that. It's just
It's almost like
there.
let's just put people in a simulated world where they can do this and it's okay because it's a
Yeah,
game. And that to me is
yeah,
a little bit like that makes me question the people behind it. Like, what made
yeah.
you think this was a good
It's
idea?
yeah, it's just putting it out there to be like, here, do this thing, and that's it. There's nothing
Hmm.
tangible to it. There's not even a real story to it.
Yeah.
Um, you know, whereas others like say Splatterhouse, the Splatterhouse series, there's at least something to it. Like there's a story to it where Rick and Ginny go to a a haunted house or whatever. She gets abducted in some fashion. He has to put on a haunted evil mask to be able to handle the monsters that are in there, and he goes and pummels them to try to rescue her.
Hmm.
I'm simplifying it. I'm probably getting some details
Well, what
wrong,
you've
but
simplified it
that's
to is made it much more of a clear setup problem solution. There's a story.
yeah. There's a basic story, a basic flow to it, and the graphics and stuff are fantastic.
Ooh.
Um, to compare it, for those who may not have played Splatterhouse, but may have played this other game, it reminds me somewhat of Comics Zone, which is spelled Comix Zone, right? Which is about a comic book creator who gets sucked into his own comic book by the bad guy of his comic series, and the bad guy of the comic series is the one who is doing the artistry and stuff of the comic book now, and is creating bad guys and stuff that the artist, the original guy, has to fight in order to get out of the comic,
Mm.
or else he's trapped there forever, allowing the bad guy to have all this power to try to take over the world. Um,
All over the
it
top.
reminds me, yeah, Splatterhouse reminds me a little bit of that in the aesthetic of like you're transitioning from different rooms in a specific kind of way that feels similar, and like the one that I played had a timer, and if you didn't, I believe it was Splatterhouse 3 that I played, uh, and if you didn't do it in time, like the thing inside the house would kill Jenny or something of that nature.
Yeah.
Um,
To create tension, you've got a limit.
Wonderful game, very violent, very gory, but it's very wonderful in like the presentation, the story. Um, and there's two versions of it too, because Japan had a version, and then some aspects of things like there's a documentary that I watched about that, wherein they were explaining some of the things involved in getting it ported from Japan to America, where the American companies wanted certain things changed to suit the audiences here.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's differences between the two versions in Japan and in America, including the style of the mask that Rick wears, which was originally styled similar to Jason Voorhees. That was the inspiration for the mask,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Or some of the monsters were inspired from other things too, like and even though it's kind of a basic story, it's still got a story to it. It's still got like an interesting interaction and stuff to it. Like it feels good to like play it, right? Like the soundtrack is great. Like it's Splatterhouse.
It may have like well, it's again, it comes back to I think again intent behind it, and in that regard, it becomes the debate, and I think the qualm I think with games is also one games just as much as film and TV. We're not talking, and we're leaving out like anything documentary realistic, but like when people are like making a movie, making a show, it's story. When they're making fiction, we're gonna stay away
Sometimes
from
I'm
anything nonfiction, anything there. But the games, it's just especially with games, exploring fantasy, and when it's got intention, it's part of the world. Now, again, is that going to be for everybody? No. But, for gamers out there, a lot of gamers, it adds elements to it. I mean, you've heard me obsess over the many ways Sebastian Castellanos can die.
Yeah.
And to me, I enjoy when games don't pull punches on like the Sebs, the Leon Kennedys. Like, yeah, he's the pretty boy of Resident Evil. He can still get his head literally chainsawed off by some guy, and it's a bit gruesome. And I'm like, and to me, it's almost that's the camp of it, but it's also because it's fictional and because it to me it raises the stakes because and I guess in some ways part of why it works for me in those games is it raises the stakes. It's no, these characters are still very much mortal and can still die in this world, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit raises the stakes, even though but it's like, yeah, you want to avoid violent death. So, and it
Yeah.
adds to the tension, which is something I enjoy with those games. I enjoy the tension, and okay, fine. There is some ASMR satisfaction with the head crunchy sounds Sebastian makes when he stomps on things.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that. Um, and the earlier conversation with Mortal Kombat, because even though I didn't have much in the way of issues of the Mortal Kombat stuff that happens even up to the modern day stuff, I have some difficulties with some of the kills that happen in the Resident Evil series and the Evil Within series. Some of those kills that happen to the protagonist are a little hard for me to take.
I'm curious
Um,
which ones now, because I mean,
I-
admittedly, when I'm playing it, there's a level of tension, so it's sometimes the way the kill is, it's so over the top. But if I'm like freaking out, it becomes like a laugh moment that breaks the tension.
yeah, like there was one, I don't know which Resident Evil it is, where Leon could get shoved into a meat grinder or something.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that
Um,
six that stupid cutscene in 6 was that's probably one of the most over the top ones, and here's why it is also so over the top for me. Because the entire time during that cutscene, Helena just stands in the background. Like the AI for her character just stops and she just stands there like no reaction. And I'm like, that's just makes this kind of disturbing.
yeah, and like I have a bit of a harder time with that than I do with like some of the like the X-rays and stuff that happen in the modern Mortal Kombat games because I'm like, those look very cartoony to me. Those look very dumb. Uh,
That
sure, those things would kill, but look, the character gets back up. It's a cartoon.
that one, yeah, and
They're not.
that one in Resident Evil 6 I was shocked when it happened because it was like, am I gonna like, is it gonna be, oh, what I would normally expect, which is something something, and then screen's gonna go red. We hear Helena going Leon because it's 6. Somebody's gotta be screaming somebody's name every single time. Oh my gosh, almost drives you insane, especially if you die a lot in one part because then you just keep hearing so and so screaming. But
Yeah.
the fact that they didn't and kept it going was a bit of a, we went there. Leon is
Mhm.
pulp now. And there is a part of me that enjoys, especially because Leon, particularly within Resident Evil, like kind of came onto the scene as the pretty boy, especially
Mhm.
when 4 came out, original 4 came out, and they'd sort of revamped his character, aged him up, but also given him much more of that, like, we're talking Matrix, Mission Impossible, James Bond kind of ish, woo. You know, to me, he's the pretty boy of the franchise and has been, but he's also a badass. But that's why, to me, it also is, I'm like, I appreciate that they still make him very mortal. But
Yeah.
that death in particular was like, did we just? Oh, we went there. We went there. Okay. And there have been a few moments in the franchise where there have been a few deaths in some games where it's like, oh, okay, I'm died, and then the screen keeps going. I think of one particular kill at the beginning of 5, when because of course 5 just models all like the same basic events off of like beats, not events, beats from 4. So you have the first major horde scene that can be really like insane with the big thing, which is just modeling the same thing in original 4. When he goes into the town, the village goes crazy, chainsaw shows up. It's that same basic thing in 5. And in that scene, if you get killed, instead of it just being like, oh, they die, they fall over, screen goes red, instead of the screen going red immediately, they cut to like a first person perspective of the villagers beating the character. Like the camera is now, you are now the eyes of the character seeing the villagers beat you to death. And I'm like, that's violent. Why are we doing
Yeah,
that? Like,
yeah.
was that necessary? Because that feels a little bit absurd.
But yeah, there's just like a fair bit of ones in those franchises that I'm like, ugh, I don't know about that one, dog.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess they don't
but
throw me as much because from a playing the game experience, they become part of the experience and part of how I break up the tension.
mhm,
You know, they don't throw me as much. Though I remember, oddly enough, crossing a little bit out of horror, but I remember you and I talking about though like kills for Laura in the first of the Tomb Raider remakes, or I guess remakes or reboots, whatever.
yeah,
With that one, which I really liked that portrayal of Laura because it was a much more grounded, realistic Laura. And I remember you had mentioned, oh yeah, some of the deaths are a little bit ridiculous. And then when I played it, it was like, wow, they're particularly violent in some of the ways you can
they
accidentally die.
they are incredibly violent in the ways that you can die in those games, and like some of those I can't handle either.
Yeah, and that one stood out to me more. Now, of course, somebody asks the question, is it because, again, female character, female identifying, female raised, and a lot of times it's her versus men in the game. And I'm like, maybe that's some of it, and maybe it's not. I don't know, but I do agree that it almost gets excessive the various ways. Whereas, like, okay, Evil Within, first game, the first time you encounter a tripwire. I one time made the mistake of accidentally walking into the tripwire, and to me, it is comical how over the top it is that if you accidentally walk into a tripwire or a bomb, Sebastian literally is just dismembered limbs. Like you will just see like part of a leg. Because it's that era of animation too. So I mean, it's animated and it's graphic, but it's not like, oh my gosh, I see like exact entrails. It's not like it walked off of a TV show, a live action
Mhm.
show. But it's so unabashedly like, I just got Seb blown up. Literally. Like I don't even think a bomb would work that way in real life. Like it'd be messier.
Yeah,
I, it just
yeah.
it's funny. It's funny to me because I almost to me it's probably because as playing the game it breaks up the tension because
Mhm.
whoops, I'm startled, I'm laughing now. It's sort of ridiculous because it's maybe not totally realistic to, my overactive imagination would be going, okay, but what would a bomb actually do to a human body in that moment? Divided up into these like perfectly chopped little limbs or just like splatter.
I don't know. Um, and like I guess it's kind of similar for me, like just going back to Mortal Kombat because that's the one that we've been kind of pointing to.
Yes.
Like all that stuff, I'm like, well, doing that would kill a person. Doing that would permanently like disable this person. But then they get back up and they're ready for more, and it becomes the itchy and scratchy show. It's very cartoony.
Yeah,
Um, for
I
me.
think that's that level of sometimes it's the level of absurdity that makes it not feel like you're crossing a line because it's almost so ridiculous it's not. But again, they're still a very careful because, like you had originally said, and I also observed when I played Tomb Raider, there's a point where you sort of sit there and go, this is too much. And maybe
Yeah.
it's because it's just too easy for her to die. Like, I will say those games have some really challenging points where you do one wrong thing and you're dead. Like I
Mhm.
died a lot playing that game. And maybe that's part of it is it's almost just too easy to get killed.
It feels like that series feels a little, and this is to me, I know that it's not to everybody, but to me, it feels a little like porn gory, torture porny
They almost moved
in
away
that
from the
sense.
the almost sexual exploitation, which I still think it's hilarious that the whole stereotype of Lara Croft and Tomb Raider and her big ass boobs came from a mistake in the animation in the early days, and it was like, whoops, well we'll keep it because we're all horny for gazungas. But yeah, it almost feels like, okay, we're going to ground the character, make her look more realistic, act more realistic, ground it more in reality. So in exchange, we're going to make it way more violent how she can get killed. And I'd
Yeah.
almost
And
rather the boob exploitation in that regard.
yeah, I'm not a fan of of that part in regards to the modern ones. Um, it's just something I just can't really watch.
Yeah. I think what
Um,
you're hitting on is again though comes back to where is the line, and it if you don't explore it, it's hard to know. But also, in fairness to people, for some people, that is the limit.
yeah,
You know, like I wouldn't necessarily recommend Tomb Raider to everyone out there, because I'm like, it's got some really interesting puzzle solving and this, but by the way, there's a lot of violence towards Laura in the game, towards the main character. That's just a consequence of playing the game. Like if you mess up, oops, you're dead. But a lot of times it's particularly violent. And other times
yeah,
it's me being a dumbass and walking off a bridge, which was just funny. But
yeah,
that would like any walk off a bridge moment in a game goes.
yeah. Um, but that brings up an interesting note in regards to like the line and watching a character, or even
I have two things
specifically
to add.
like
I'm not
the
feeling well.
interaction of a character,
Hmm.
which is like watching them die.
Yeah.
Um, because some of that it's like it's really cartoony.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to point to Mortal Kombat. Um, or it's really cartoony in the sense of like I don't know, something where you have like a clay fighter, right? Like clay fighter, like clay models exploding or
Well,
whatever, right?
Among Us.
Um,
Among Us, some of the
Among Us,
particularly violent deaths, and it's these little cartoonized. I mean, heck, I made a sculpture of one of the kills.
yeah, right. Like it's very cartoony and wacky. Um, but then you look at to point to it since we've been talking about it, uh, modern Tomb Raider, and the kills there, and the fact that you can't. There's no option to be like the character can just like die and then we just
Fade to
like
black.
cut to like a black continue screen or whatever, or allow the cinematic to play it through, um, where she dies and you see it because I don't think there's a way to skip that,
There really isn't.
right?
No, no. And some of
Um,
them are longer, some of them are blessedly short, and some of them are longer and they're born from like reaction commands. And if you don't get it exactly right and it changes up, which makes it even harder to get past that scene because we're going to change what letter or what button you have to push right here. And it unfortunately that game is not blessed by the hack that is an original Resident Evil 4, which is just it's only going to be one of these two combinations, so just hit all of them at the same time and you'll be fine.
yeah. Um, so like at that point, it's like, okay, is there a way? I mean, I guess because I mentioned it, are there ways for people who may be a little more sensitive to that? If developers wanted to keep that kind of thing in there, is there a way for them to just, is it simple for them to put in a choose to not show option?
Yeah. Well, like the newer Resident Evil remakes actually I remember it being I think in Evil Within 2, there's actually a setting option. It's nested into the graphics section, so when you're changing the graphics setting, one of the nested options, I know it's in Resident Evil 4 remake, is to essentially reduce the gore. And in some ways I'm like I like that. I turn it up all the way cuz that's part of the hilarity of my channel too.
Mhm.
Um, and you know it. We've seen it. You've seen me in
Yeah,
the channel. That's kind of part of the nature of some of my channel is that nah, we're gonna let it be violent and be ridiculous and over the top. Um, but you can actually turn it down, or you can reduce the character model based behaviors. Like they're like make everybody completely different, or and they nested in under graphics because of graphic load
mhm,
because it's not rendering. A lot of times it means it's rendering fewer variations than,
yeah,
so it has but it's funny because it's like in simple graphic quantity, that's what it's there for. But it's also like, it's kind of nice that we have that setting. I feel like that setting might also exist in Village. And I feel like I've seen it in Evil Within too, where part of the graphic settings include a how gory do you want this to be? And it's
Yeah,
not it's really like a one or the other, and they're still graphic, but there's still a choice to reduce, which
yeah.
I can respect that. That's a very much a saying, you know,
I
like it's like I like difficult. I enjoy it when a game on its difficulty settings says, like Resident Evil, like, or some games where it's like, instead of saying this is if you're new to it or this, where they're like, if you want to just enjoy the story, here's the easiest setting. If you want to challenge yourself to the game, here's the hardest setting. And I feel like that's a nicer way of saying some of us really do just want to enjoy the story and
yeah.
not struggle.
Um, Also, I think that your note of turning the graphics down, the gore graphics and stuff down, I think that that's a compromise. I think that's like a middle of the road. Some of us want this, some of us want that. We want this in our vision of our game. So here's this thing to kind of satisfy both sides a little bit, right?
hmm
Um,
And it's something that's a very practical thing to be able to do because it's also just reducing the graphic load.
right. Um,
And if you want your
but
game
then
to
I
be
get
more
back to it.
reachable to other people, then,
Yeah. But then I get back to intention. Um, and I'm gonna beat up on Tomb Raider more here.
we can.
Uh, what is it that we're supposed to learn from her graphic deaths?
Yeah. And that,
What are we what are we getting from those? What is it trying to tell us? Because even there's like one or two moments where she encounters villains and there's like a cutscene or whatever, and they are being pretty lascivious toward her
yeah.
in gross ways. They're not the game devs are not saying anything with that.
No.
They're not saying anything with that. They're just like, this man is gross, and we're going to make him feel more like a villain by exploiting Lara in this way. But we're not really like confronting this particular subject in this video game. It's just we have this moment with this guy and her. Let's just make him more villainous by giving him this gross mannerism toward her in this moment.
How do
And
we make
then
this
when the
character
hero,
more, how, especially with a female protagonist, how do we make the villain more villainous? Well, make him a
yeah,
predator as well.
yeah, like they take the easy way out, and it's not like he is a long lasting villain. He's just there for that moment, and then when the player succeeds in defeating him, he's dead. So it's like, okay, great, Lara killed him, and all right, now what?
hmm
Because
That's,
it doesn't feel like a moment of like we learned more in depth about this particular subject or whether it's more like this guy was being gross and so she managed to beat him and hooray,
yeah,
it stopped
it's,
us from seeing the gratuitous death that feels gross.
but it's, yeah, it's sort of a, does this advance the plot? Or, a phrase that I hear from in my job is this advancing the narrative? And sometimes advancing the narrative is also advancing the setting. So and maybe it's not necessarily pushing the actual like straight up narrative, but something is there because you need an understanding of what the setup is for the setup
Yeah.
of this situation. But and that's it's a criticism I've seen it in the webcomic world actually a lot, or seen it criticized, like kind of like um, Top Us webtoons, some of the stories that show up there, those various platforms, and not all of them, but I saw a criticism on one comic somebody had made where somebody was like, "Why are we using rape as a context for this story?" And their comment was just, "I'm so tired of people using." Like trying to create some compelling story and it's a sexual predator and the main character, like this doesn't feel right. And I'm like, you know what, that's fair. That is completely
Yeah.
fair. And that actually happened to be a story that was in the LGBTQI plus area. So it wasn't necessarily like against women, which, so it's not that this is just happening against women. It's that we see it in a lot of different stories, and where sexual predation becomes kind of a go-to response or a go-to mechanism for creating conflict. And it's one of those ones where I'm like, but do we always need it? Because quite frankly, people can be horrifying without being sexual predators. And
Yeah.
it's a crutch to make somebody seem more villainous. Sometimes it has a purpose. Sometimes it is pivotal to the character, and sometimes it's just excessive.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's like, guys, moderation is a thing. You know, okay, so these, like, going back to Tomb Raider as an example, because what these guys she encounters, it's like pirates, like modern versions of pirates is kind of how they're portrayed.
Yeah.
And to some extent, I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah, modern versions of pirates. I will not rule out that being a part of the behavior because, what's the rape, pillage, and plunder of pirates. But you don't have to hit us over the head with that every single fucking time. Because these
Yeah.
guys are also, pillage. There are three words in this phrase: rape, pillage, and plunder. There are three: pillage and plunder. So,
And
quite
like,
frankly, you don't have to do it. You can give us enough to know, yeah, this is a part of it, but you don't have to sit there every single time she encounters one of them on screen and have them be sexually perverse for us to know that these guys probably would commit sexual violence. It's like
yeah.
we don't have to be hit over the head with it.
And you don't even need that in the first place.
Yeah.
Um, I remember that particular moment where there's a lot going on, and those guys had to rally to like get something ready or something. I
Yeah.
forget what in particular. That dude didn't need to do what he was doing to her in that. It could have just been a case of like, oh no, there's this particular Tomb Raider lady here. Uh, my guys need to be able to have time to take care of the thing. Let me keep her busy. Bang bang,
Yeah.
bang bang.
Things could
And
have
then
been
they could get
implied.
into like a fist fight. That could be your QTE if you really wanted it, where they're going back and forth. And yeah, he's bigger, but she's lithe, and so she's faster, and like it becomes agility, which is the QTE, versus these. If you miss it, you get one blow. That's a knockout blow, right? That
Yeah. Well, and
continues screen.
it's like it's possible to make a character creepy in that regard if you really want that character to be creepy. Fine,
Mhm.
but you can there's a lot of ways to go about that without the overt, you know. I mean, I want to sit there and be like, trust me, women experience it all the time of people being creepy and without necessarily, somebody saying a complete stranger complimenting your appearance on the street can be creepy. And that's all they say. It's like you don't have to always be so in your face. Sometimes it can just be implied. And that's all you need is imply it once, you've made the point. There we go. And
Yeah,
you've made your point without having to go further into it. And that adds the tension in. And in some ways, that's a better way of adding the tension in because, quite frankly, and again, this is speaking from, not just born and raised, woman, but, I'd identify as a woman, is that, you know, I live with that. I live with that reading between the lines of when a stranger says something to me. And I think, especially for a female protagonist, it's like, come on, dudes, you don't have to. And this is where I want to sit there and go, I kind of can tell that the developers are male and writing from a male perspective instead of a female informed perspective, because trust me, we don't need that much knocked on our faces to know it's there. We're constantly living with it. I carry pepper spray on my keys for a reason. You
yeah,
know, I have gone on walks in the daytime and turned around and gone different directions because I know I stand out too much. And this is in like the most casual of like leggings, shirt and like a water pack, and been like, I'm going to not walk in this area because I know I stand out. And I stand out in a way that I don't want to stand out. And I mean, and there's things that I do, behaviors that I do, like when I'm walking with my headset on, I always have it like partially off one ear, you know, but I still keep them on because, because the juxtaposition of if I don't have them on at all and somebody says something to me and I overtly ignore them, they might get mad at me for overtly ignoring them. And then I've got somebody who's throwing a temper who's coming at me because they're angry because, bitch, why'd you ignore me? Versus if my headset's on, it signals that I've got something else going on. So they're not going to, so it's kind of an overt, okay, she probably didn't hear me. But at the same time, I'm partially off one ear so that I can still hear better what's happening around me. I mean, this is an everyday thing. And this is why I say that, like, Tomb Raider didn't have to be so on the nose about it. There's so much they could have done that implied it and communicated the same thing and communicated that, yes, Laura is in a unique set of circumstances because it's not just that these guys are all out to kill her, it's that she's a woman among a group that, it's probably dangerous to be the woman there. But you don't have to sit there and put it in our faces, because trust me, that person, that a real life Lara Croft would be like, trust me, it doesn't need to be in my face for me to know that it's there. And that's just the nature of. This is when I can also say with some of these games, you can tell it's been informed by a certain perspective. And I know there are people who be like, male perspective, female perspective, but as a woman, there are times when I can tell where it's really obvious that a story has been informed by a male perspective versus a female perspective on it and what you expect.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think in that regard, I think that's why it feels so over the line in Tomb Raider that we're seeing all this, because it's like we really don't need to see all of that to know that it's there. And I think that's a part of stories is, again, it kind of goes also to show don't tell, and you don't even have to show much. You can just imply loosely. Or maybe you don't have to show anything because, trust me, the audience will put the pieces together. Audiences ain't dumb.
Yeah.
Now that I've got on my whole, like, gender thing.
No, it's perfectly within the topic of discussion and important.
It's a worthwhile thing, I think, also because in horror, women have had a unique role in horror for many, many decades, and don't worry, folks, we'll circle back to that. But I think we've already talked about circling back to that with some extra perspective as well.
Yeah.
In it.
That'll be a great special episode to listen to.
I'm excited for that one.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, where the line is, though, I think going back to where we were talking, especially with games, I think what makes people uncomfortable and makes them knee-jerk to also saying games are at fault for violence is the knee-jerk of art imitating life, and then their claim is that life imitates art. And I'm like, in some cases it might happen, but a lot of this is these games are being informed by people. But at the same time, I'm like, films, TV, everything's informed by the reality that we live in. And that's hard for people to digest, especially in a game where you participate in that fictitious reality. And I think that's what scares people, is what's informed by reality, but the fact that as a player, you take up a participatory role in it.
Yeah.
And that's what makes people think, oh, these are evil, horrible things that are going to make my children do this. No. But yes, should you maybe, like, be careful what games you allow your young child to play? Yeah. And I think there's enough knowledge now with games and enough information out there that it is worthwhile for games to also take the prudent action of, again, content warnings. Because did some of us probably play games that were probably more violent than we should have as a child? Yeah, we probably did. Games are still very young in the world.
Yep. I played the OG Mortal Kombat on Sega all the time as a kid.
Yeah. So, are there things that maybe we should have had a little more? And I think that's just, it comes back to somewhat of a level of parents to children, you have responsibility to help make sure your children are well set up and well informed and be well informed. And then for young people and twit adults that, you know, inform yourself, but also, you know, be aware of what you're doing.
Just one quick note.
Hmm.
One thing that's not over the line is sharing LGBTQIA plus experiences.
I
Let's not ban books because
don't.
you're a salty bitch.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Um,
I'm like,
yeah,
people,
that's not over the line.
representation matters.
Um,
And actually, that's one of the
over.
things I really like. I'm gonna just point out that I really like that. I've not played the
Mhm.
games. I've only seen the show, but I enjoy that about Last of Us because they do, you know, one of the main characters is, you know, is gay, is a lesbian, basically. And even in the tags I see in it on like Steam, they tag Last of Us as LGBTQI plus, and I'm like, I appreciate that this is part of it, and that the story does incorporate some of the struggles some of these characters have as being different from what they were raised in being normal, from what they were brought up as. But it's also like I really appreciate that this is, ooh, zombies, monsters, end of the world. And oh yeah, by the way, gay people exist. Cause
Yeah,
yeah, they fucking do exist. Like they're part of the story too. And the show
yep.
doesn't treat it like it's exceptional. It's only in the sense that certain characters come from preconceived biases. And so it deals with that nuance of still facing against people who have this prejudice, but it's not like this is the central story of it of, oh my gosh, this person's struggling because, this girl's struggling because she likes a girl. It's like whatever. We're just like when you listen to them talk about it in production, they're talking about the relationships of these characters, not about the fact that so and so is gay. And I like
Yeah,
that. I like that because it's just relationships.
yeah. Anyway, uh, I think that's
We've
about it, at
covered
least for now.
we've covered a lot. I'm
We
trying.
covered a lot.
There's honestly there's so much
Um,
with this,
yeah.
and I mean we didn't even go into some of the other things there because
Um,
what's our
when we
bottom
get
line
into, huh?
I would say what the bottom line conclusion of where is the line is.
Um, yeah, I think we found that a lot of it comes into intent versus no intent.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of it is, well, some of it is perspective, individual experiences, um, feeling out one's comfort level, because individuals are different.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of it is like, who is the one that wrote it and their background
Yeah.
versus the experience of those whose background is, in a sense, being depicted.
Yeah. Well, and I think perspective in writing it matters. I didn't even think about as in depth about it, but I know we've talked about it in relation to other pieces of media and movies out there of be careful when you're writing something that is not your own perspective,
Yeah,
especially if it's a
and
very unique perspective. You want to be very careful and nuanced because you don't want to become a stereotype. And I have seen that happen. The best intended authors and writers can make the mistake of becoming stereotyped because it's not a nuance that they lived with, you
yeah,
know, which is also
and
why we don't explore certain topics, just the two of us, but we have them on the table, but we want to bring in people who have experiences native to those topics because we have our own perspective, but our perspective is born from being outside of that area of representation.
yeah. Um, so yeah. Uh, well, uh, I know that I want to touch on uh, extreme horror books and splatterpunk and all that stuff again. a little later, so we're gonna put a little pin in that.
I need to read
Um,
Clive Barker now.
yeah, because I know that there's some stuff out there, some of which I'm not looking forward to looking at, uh, that exist. That's also popular in the extreme horror community for books.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I think for now we're good. Am I right? Or
I feel like we've done a good covering. Folks out there, if you've got any thoughts on what we've discussed here, and, or if you want to see us revisit this topic and address something maybe we missed, please feel free to reach out to us. We do have an email, theconfabulators@gmail.com. Please feel free to
yeah,
email us and let us know what your thoughts are, what your experiences are. I mean, we've shared a few of our personal experiences of what to us crossed the line and what our experience with it is, but I'm definitely curious what other people have to say, what for them is over the line versus what isn't. Um, Especially because, again, movies like Terrifier and A Clockwork Orange, there are audiences out there and people out there who enjoy those films. And the perspective helps us understand better. Understanding what people appreciate about those things compared with what we do or don't helps us understand better what it is that how people work,
yeah,
you know. So please feel free to reach out to us with comments, questions, observations. We
yeah.
love it all.
And And we'll certainly address those in a future
Hmm.
episode or mini-sode
Yeah,
dedicated to answering your questions.
yes. I know
Uh,
that we've got a few
so,
more episodes that will go back on some of these pinned topics too.
yes, we are going back through and writing down our pins that we have in things so we
Yes.
can pull those pins.
And side tangent, as
Um,
we've been releasing episodes, I think we've both been, because the time that's passed since when we recorded them to release, we're realizing, oh, I have more perspective on that now, or I finally saw this thing or that thing. So,
yeah, which we totally understood would probably happen.
I love it. I
Um,
love it. Now,
so where can they? Oh, what?
you just beat me to the question.
Where can they find you, Liz? Haha.
I can be found on Twitch, Lady Hyacinth 57, Lady Hyacinth 57 dot Twitch TV or Twitch TV dot I don't know. I don't remember. Look up Lady Hyacinth 57. I play games good, or we play games good. Most
Card's gonna be next to you.
our editors reminding me that they will be on the screen, so you guys don't have to take my word for it. It will be right there in front
Yeah,
of you. Yay! um,
yeah.
Thank you, E. So I do play a lot of Resident Evil, Evil Within. Of course, I'm prepping to eventually do attempt a sort of 24-hour run of the 8 main chapter Resident Evil games. But I have been playing around with some other games recently. Um, Actually, Dave, you're going to be excited about this because I think I'm going to install Blasphemous and give that a go.
Ooh.
So, because I've been watching Castlevania and I feel like Blasphemous is kind of in the same historically loaded world, and I'm kind of feeling an itch to give it a try and try something totally
There's
different.
literally Castlevania games.
And
Pin and
eventually,
Blasphemous, then. We got to
yes,
talk about that, bro.
yes, especially
Um,
since we talked about that. So, but either way, I do play a lot of Resident Evil. That's my go back to game. So, now, Dave, where can our lovely Voidwalkers find you?
yes. Y'all can find me at twitch.tv/sheriff_Flynn. I play a variety of games. I used to be more heavily into Dead by Daylight. I've been slowly kind of transitioning my way from that for a variety of reasons that maybe someday I'll go into, but not now. Currently, I'm playing Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous. I am playing a chaotic evil gnome uh, who is a rogue, also known as Thief for those of you old heads. Um, and I've got a couple episodes already up on my YouTube, which is also Sheriff Flynn, um, which I need to make sure that E can link on here, which I don't know if that will require an edit adjustment. If it does, I apologize profusely. I'm so sorry.
We
But
really
It's in
want
the
to shout
comments
out.
now.
We're going to shout out right here our editor E, who
yes,
without E, this would not be
and
happening.
Yes, our wonderful friend Tanuki, who also has a Twitch. If they choose to link it, they can absolutely please.
Hmm.
Um, but I've been playing Pathfinder a little bit. I'm trying to get a more solid schedule going, something more regular, because things have been a little erratic when it comes to my scheduling and
Yeah.
playing on there, mainly because of being a professor. Uh,
I've been feeling that, but on like not obviously I'm not a professor, but I've been feeling that actually lately too, especially because the days are getting longer and it's getting hotter. So I'm like trying to take my I try to take daily walks. Exercise is good for y'all. Get out and walk. But
mhm.
I have to wait till later in the day because it's so fucking hot. And oh my god damn it. So I've been trying to read. My schedule's a little all
And
over the map.
yeah, and I'm going to be picking Wolfenstein back up because I would love to destroy more Nazis because they're evil, and it's fun to destroy evil things like that.
punch
Um,
punch some
so
Nazis.
that's right. Make I have a clip. Feel free to play it here, which I think it's like a minute long, or slightly less than a minute long, uh, from the second game in the chronological series. Because there was like the old blood, and then there's the one that I is currently on. There's a moment where
New
I'm
Colossus. New Colossus.
uh, New Colossus. Thank you, E. Where I'm leaning over and I shoot a guy, and his model goes flying right into the air. It's amazing. I
I
Well, that's
love
going
it.
in the
adore that
episode.
I
so much.
love it. I love it.
But yeah, y'all can find me there.
Hmm.
The YouTube link will also be here, uh, hopefully.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
Thank
And
you, E, for all you do for us.
yeah, and I will
Um,
eventually be moving more. I've been slowly migrating my past content to YouTube and will eventually I'm still figuring out my life.
yeah.
So, but and
Um,
especially just since YouTube is a little more constant and now that Twitch has put a limit on how much highlight material you can keep. So,
yeah.
in the meantime, folks,
YouTube has become
please
more important.
in the meantime, folks, if you are watching this on YouTube, please don't forget to follow, subscribe, to keep up to date on new episodes and shorts and potential other content that we have discussed and may or may not be adding onto the YouTube channel. In the meantime, you can subscribe for new episodes of the Confabulators on pretty much any of your major podcast providers. We're on most of them. Not Pandora. We're not on Pandora. There were too many forms. So, but almost anywhere you can find your podcast, you can find us.
Listen, we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're good.
It's Apple,
And we're FX.
Spotify, the core ones. So yes,
Yep.
so
The ones that
please
matter.
follow, subscribe. Feel free to leave us a comment. We love the feedback. We love the comments. I know we got a comment recently on one of our past episodes. Somebody shouting out blasphemous, and that made me
Yeah.
happy.
Made me happy too.
So
Um, but yeah, so I guess until next time, if you need to know what a confabulator is, order yourself a pizza, um, wherever you like. I hear that the pepperoni is good because it's lots of pizza and people like Shaquille O'Neal. And then when the delivery driver comes there, ask them
yeah,
as part of the tip. Hey, do you know what a confabulator is?
yeah,
Of course, tip them,
yes.
tip them well,
Please
but
tip your delivery
also
driver.
also, ask them what a confabulator is. They probably know. You never know.
Isn't it
Uh,
something like you can put in some of the extra instructions if you order online, extra instructions? And so, you can also
yeah.
ask them in the extra instructions, please define confabulator. It's a good test to see if
Yes.
they're reading those extra instructions.
Yes. Um, but yes.
I'm going to do that
I
now.
guess. I guess until next time. I'm Dave.
And I'm Liz. My dog just sneezed.
Seamus. All right. Take
Take
care.
care. The Confabulators is hosted by Dave Bockenkamp and Liz Strauss. Editor is E.W. Klein. Theme music, Oh Heavens, is by Cassidy B., composer and artist. Found at cbrva.cardd.co.